everybody. Welcome to the deepest dive on The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. It is the best, most thorough discussion about the game on the gosh darn internet. Thank you for being here. My name is Ben Hansen. I'm joined by Jeff Marchiafava.
That's me.
Joined by Kelsey Lewin.
The idiot internet herself.
That's right. Joined by Jacob Geller.
Hello.
And Leo Vader.
Woo!
This is our third game club discussion talking about Tears of the Kingdom. If this is the first one you found, thank you for finding us. We're trying our best to hide from you like a little Korok, but you lifted up that rock on YouTube and by God, you found us. So thank you. There are two previous episodes where we cover a bunch of other stuff in the game. In this discussion, we are covering what we build as the southern half of the map and the temples therein. But honestly, I kind of feel like this is the discussion where our structure for this kind of falls apart. Because like the game club structure has worked pretty well of like, okay, go to the northwest, now go to the northeast. And then it's like, and everything else. And
do the rest.
There turns out there is a lot. So this isn't the final episode. So we're going to miss probably a lot of big things. And you're like, what are these idiots doing? Why are they even on my screen? Why aren't they talking about this very important thing? Including like the story, the ending, a lot of, I think, probably optional boss fights, stuff like that we'll get into probably the next episode. So there will be one more episode for mopping up everything else in Tears of the Kingdom, and that's going to be coming about a month down the road. So we give people plenty of opportunity to sit back and enjoy this game and soak in all the sights and sounds before we try and fully tie the bow on everything in this game. So here's how this works. We are an outlet supported by Patreon. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's great. We appreciate that. But you can help support this type of content directly. No nonsense, no middlemen, by going to patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's. And if you go there, support us at any tier, you can submit a comment for us to read. That's where we're getting all of these comments that we are going to be reading on this episode. And then you can submit a comment for the final episode where we cover Tears of the Kingdom. So if we miss anything huge in this discussion, you say, oh, I really want to talk about this in Tears of the Kingdom. I can't believe they're talking about it. This is your opportunity. You can help support this format directly by going to patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's, and you can submit a comment for us to read. And then the cool thing, we think it's like the coolest thing, is if you go there, you support us at the $5 tier, you can unlock the podcast version of this discussion, all of our other discussions, ad-free version of the Min-Max show, all of our interviews. There's a ton in there right in your favorite podcast app. So do us a favor, if you're so inclined, by unlocking the podcast version of this discussion. You can get off YouTube now and forever.
I know I'm a little biased, but that sounds awesome.
It actually, you know what? It is pretty awesome to have things on the go. Okay, so we collected hundreds of comments over there on Patreon for this very episode. People wrote in about all sorts of things, but there is one thing that people wrote in about more than any other, by a hair. I gotta say, it was a close one this time around. Jeff, what do you think people were writing in about? What is the most common comment for the southern half of the map in Tears of the Kingdom?
Is it a specific thing?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Is it how hot Sidon is, or whatever his name is?
How hot Sidon is? You know what? No. There's one comment that half alludes to that, but there were some sketches and drawings that I didn't include in this that maybe that would
put in your private folder.
That's right. Leo, what do you think? Most common comment?
Low gravity in the Zora.
I think that was number 2. A lot of people had thoughts on that. Jacob, what do you think?
It's annoying to activate the abilities when you have all of the summons.
I'm not going to tip my hand, but interesting guess. Kelsey Lewin, what do you think?
Well, I was going to go with Leo's guess, because my favorite comment that I wrote down just for my own notes is, I miss the moon. So...
Miss the
like
moon?
The moon gravity.
Oh.
But I don't know, the boss of the water temple is a weird little dude.
I do like that little dude. No, I think the most common comment, in fact, I know the most common comment, was people talking about Riju's ability from the Southwest Temple that you get, but that's also combined with people talking about kind of struggling with the abilities. So Jacob, you basically won. Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob Geller.
Nice job.
Gets to 1 million subs on his own YouTube channel, and he nails most common comment within a week. By the way, how are you feeling about that, Jacob? Is that as unreasonable on the inside as it looks from the outside?
I mean, it's one of those very weird things where it's like, my life is exactly the same. You know, it's like a very big milestone that also changes very little about what I'm doing day to day. But it is very exciting, and it's like it's kind of like that's the last one. You know, I'm never gonna get to like 10 million. And I don't really care to. And so it's like, I did it. I can not worry about that number anymore.
Do you get a cute little plaque for 1 million?
I do.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
and it's bigger than the 100 one. And so it's exciting.
So I'm curious to know, I know you probably don't have it yet, but if they have cheaped out on that one as much as they've cheaped out on the 100K ones. Because those used to be really nice, and then they just kind of, as there are now tens of thousands, if not more, people who have 100K YouTube channels, they've gotten like cheaper and flimsier.
Oh, no.
And I don't know if they're like still paying the big bucks for the million, because that's like a, huge achievement.
I don't want to take too much time with this. They changed the style, and so the style is the same as the new 100K one, where it's more of just a single piece of metal and not like a framed thing. But honestly, I think the 100K one looks pretty nice. Like, it's still very shiny sitting in my living room, so people can ask me questions about it when they come to my house. And so I'm looking forward to putting the 1 million one next to it.
Jacob, I'm wrestling within myself because I'm so jealous of you for hitting that 1 million. We're at like 41,000 on MinMax's YouTube channel. I'm like, I don't know if we'll ever hit 100.
And we're a failure until we hit it.
I feel like I just want that 100,000 plaque. I don't know what to do, man. Other than talk about Zelda in the Best Monster discussion. Oh, steal Game Informer's Diabolico. I like it.
You
Leo,
can borrow mine if you want.
you're not using it?
I'm not using it.
As like a cutting
the
board?
majority of people on this call
We don't need to talk about
Wow.
that. We don't need to talk about that.
Jeffem, you've got one, right? You're just not
do.
telling Hanson because he feels bad.
Yeah, it's right here. I got the 1,000 views one. But I'm pretty close too to the 1 million. So
Leo, how is this session of Tears of the Kingdom for you, man?
God, it feels oddly like that one where I kind of had like a burnout period in the middle of it where I was like, I don't know if I'm vibing with this anymore. But then right in time for the recording, I'm like, oh, I'm having a great time again.
What was it? What turned you around?
I'm liking this game in proportion to how often I'm surprised by it. And there was a chunk there where I felt like I had seen everything.
Yeah.
When I found a new tool, it wasn't that different from what I'd had before. But making it to the Southwest Temple last night, that was my favorite temple yet. I thought that was really fun. Ooh. And I made it I made a new type of vehicle I'd never made before, and that was fun. The surprises were coming back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's so many mysteries packed into this game, and I know we're all still just scratching the surface barely for what's all in here. But it is this fascinating feeling of like trying to be like, okay, do I have a rough idea of what this game is capable of? And I feel like now in this section, we're kind of like, I think I get it. There's going to be different types of Zonai devices that are just more granular, but we're getting to the level of like, this one's like an extra weight, and it kind of just like, if you put it on the edge of something, it'll kind of go down fast, where it's like, it's getting to the level of like, I understand what a wheel is, but now it's like every new Zonai device I get, I'm like, okay, this will take some thinking and some tinkering to actually do something with this.
Yeah, I got the stabilizer.
Right,
And
right.
it was like, oh yeah, this is for advanced things that I'll never tinker with. It doesn't matter. But then I realized like, oh, if I use this stabilizer, I can not make a more complicated vehicle. I can make a really stupid vehicle that somehow works because it's on two wheels, but it's being stabilized.
Right.
Those little moments are great.
Does everybody have auto build at this point?
Yeah.
I still don't.
Ooh,
Me
okay.
neither. I'm missing it.
Ooh,
I think I vaguely know where it is, but I have not found the actual plate. I don't know how much we want to get into that, but it's in the depths, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
No.
have not found where in the depths, and I don't know. I'm exploring the depths extremely scattershot. Like I am not planning my adventures down there at all.
Last time I was like, auto build, I have it. I'm not using it that much. This time I'm like, auto build, new best friend. You know, friendship ended with ascension. Auto build is my new.
it is fun to see just like when you get in, it's like, oh, just new layers of the UI for like, okay, you can work through like the history of what you just built, and then there's kind of the templates in there. It's just interesting to see like how detailed it is. But I'm glad I finally went through it a little bit, the depths, just to get to that point. But I'm with you where I really enjoy being in the depths, but I also have this feeling of like, I'll get to the rest of it eventually because I feel like I'm really conquering the hell out of it. And then I zoom out and look at the map and it's like, I've barely seen anything down there, but it's so cool.
It feels like I've done like 30 glow routes or whatever they're called, but then I look at the map and I'm like, this is nothing. I've done nothing.
Yeah, there are what 120 of them. Like it's they're the same as the number of shrines.
Right.
That's the number of glow routes there are, which is just like a mind-boggling number because they kind of.
I have a question about that because there are some shrines that you kind of like create. You know, like you move a little crystal or you got a couple other little puzzly things. Do those make a glow route happen below? Were those there before?
I don't know.
That's a great
good question.
Probably not. They'd probably just ignore those, but
maybe or it's like a clue. Like there's one above.
Oh, like
you.
there is a glow route, but then there's not a shrine, and
Until
that's a clue that you need to go do something to make that shrine appear.
Yeah, that could be.
Do the glow routes show up if you haven't found the one above it? If you have, or if you haven't gone to the shrine above it?
Yeah.
If you haven't gone to it, yes, but we don't know about if you haven't like created the shrine for the ones that you need to unearth. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I spend a lot of time down in the depths, just like completely off the map and just not finding any glow routes whatsoever. And it's like, how spaced out, which I guess makes sense when when you think about the topography of Hyrule as it is, but it just feels like I'm going so far and there's nothing in the horizon in terms of like a place that I should be heading towards. I'm just wandering around in the dark.
What are you gunning for? Like the treasure maps or?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes I just find myself in a hole wandering around. I don't know. I told my wife I've been playing this game like a Labrador, basically, where it's just like whatever is in front of me at the time, I'm running towards it until something else distracts me.
Yep.
And I just got to Gerudo Town yesterday. And I did the Southeast Temple, and then I finally got to Gerudo Town yesterday, but I spent like the first 12 days of this just doing all the stuff that in regions that you would never even touch based on the main missions.
Yeah.
Like all the Kakariko stuff, all the Terrytown stuff, like it's like none of that, like side missions might point you to that stuff, but I've spent so much time in regions that's like this, I shouldn't even be here in terms of like what we're trying to accomplish for this game. And that just kind of blows my mind how much like it's not just, stupid side mission fetch quests, like we're going to sprinkle them in like you would expect from a normal open world game. Like there's like main characters and like huge, chain quests that are just tucked away in these far regions that you just have to go out there and explore to find them because you're not going to get them just following the main path.
In that vein, I wanted to ask about the treasure maps that you find in chests.
Yeah.
Those seem to be fully, like, systemic, right? Like, it's in a random chest, and it leads you to a random chest that has armor in it. It's not like a set spot for those things.
What leads you to believe that?
It's just a guess because it's of, like, you could find a chest with armor in it and then find that map later, and the map wouldn't do anything for you.
Once I did that, and I actually found a map, and it said, "You've already found this treasure."
Oh,
but it's only happened once, and yeah, I think there's just a lot down there, and it is hard to find things in the depths, and so for the most part, you're not. But I did just once. I got because it was on a sky island, and it was kind of hard to get, and I was like, "Hoo-hoo, old map!" And I was like, "You've already found this one."
No,
I think I've only found maps so far by defeating those flux construct guys. Like it seems like all of those drop a map, or at least I don't know, the like 3 that I've fought dropped maps. I don't know if I've found one in a chest yet. Are they just like completely random?
They're pretty small,
like unassuming chests.
It's like really small little sky islands if they need to have a prize on it. That's where I've typically found it. It's like okay,
or
just a little
like there are those sky islands where you can turn the thing using the like smaller thing, If that makes sense, it's like
Yes.
you're kind of controlling a gyroscope, and then
Right.
like on the big thing, there's like a chest attached to a rope. Like I
I
found
did
a
find one of
couple
those.
maps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did find one of those. Okay.
John wrote in over on Patreon. They say, maybe everybody else already knows this, but I noticed that the light roots directly under the shrines are called the shrine names, but spelled in reverse. It's a very fun touch.
Does anyone else, when they like get to a shrine now, like read it in reverse because you just know that's what the light root is going to be called? I don't know why I do that. I'm just like I try to pronounce it backwards after that.
It does sound like a fun challenge. I like it. Anthony Brown, talking about the depths too, says, I think in the last episode someone mentioned how every light root in the depths has a corresponding shrine above ground. The depths are even more of a reflection of Hyrule than you think. Every mountain in Hyrule is a valley in the depths, and every valley in Hyrule is a mountain in the depths. When I was trying to activate the light roots, I kept the minimap on the above ground so I would have an idea of the terrain I was going to encounter and could build the right machines to run around on, says Anthony Brown.
That's so
Smart.
interesting.
God damn, I had no idea.
So they just reuse the maps because they're lazy.
Lazy devs.
This is
That's right,
Ubisoft,
lazy devs.
playbook.
Man, you know what I was thinking about with this game? It's weird. I feel like I've listened to a lot of podcasts and heard a lot of discussion about this game and all this stuff. And maybe it's obvious, but it's like, it's that sign of quality with this game that no one's used the word like gimmick. I think it seems like a layup for people talking about Ultra Hand being like, oh, it's kind of the gimmick of this entire Zelda game. But it's just, everything's done so well that even though it is kind of, you know what I'm talking about? Like, it could be described if it was a poor implementation as like, oh, this is the gimmicky Zelda where it's all about grabbing stuff and floating it around. But the game is just so good that gimmick is so far away from anybody's tongue. It's like 10 miles away at any given moment, I think.
And I think gimmick, I think you're totally right. I think gimmick is like better describes something shallow. It's easier to go like, oh, it's a fun idea, but you can't really do anything with it. And
Right.
even the most cynical contrarian on planet Earth could not fathom saying that Ultra Hand's a gimmick for how well it works and how much you can do with it.
Yeah,
It's
it'd be like,
so
oh,
fully
Mario's gimmick is the jump.
Right,
You know, this
right,
Mario's
right.
really got the jump
Yeah.
gimmick.
It's a core system.
Tetris gimmick is rotating. It's okay, everybody's got to rotate now. We get it. Speaking of the shrines that you can make on your own, I feel like I blew it a couple times, but I finally got to see the Death Star Skyland, and I was
Yes.
so excited because it was in that trailer. I'm like, oh, I want to see what's in that so much. And it's just fun to like fly into a little Death Star hole. And then I think, is there more than one kind of globe
Yeah.
Sky Island?
There are
Okay.
a couple.
Okay, well, the first one I went to, at least, like, it has that little, Sims gem that, like, okay, I can grow the shrine out of this or whatever, but I had to, like, launch it out of the hole to somewhere else, and I launched it out of the hole, but then it missed the other Skyland and just, like, fell to the mainland, and so I had to, like, skydive after this to try and find it, and I missed it, and now I don't know where it is, and now...
Are you sure it doesn't respawn?
It's probably back where it
Do you
started.
think so?
yeah.
Okay.
It must be.
All right. I
Because
didn't.
how else would you ever get that back up?
I don't know. It's like I almost have so much faith in this game. It's like, oh, it'd be awesome if it was just like sitting somewhere on the ground now, like the Ring and Lord of the Rings or something, just like on a riverbed. Like maybe I'll find it eventually or something. But you're probably right. I just didn't go back up to the Death Star to see it. But I panicked thinking that I missed that.
I
Was it
definitely
the-
did not know there was more than one Death Star because I did one last night and it was definitely not that one. So
The second one's
It's-
bigger, but it's not complete. And then the third one, it's Star Killer.
It's a planet. Did yours have the thing where there's one that I went into where there's this really cool thing where it had like a machine in it that was like, it was something that was just turning around and I was like, what is this? And then I stopped the thing and like the platform within it stopped rotating and suddenly it was like unfixed from the rotation of the outer.
Right.
And it was just so, again, it was something where it was like, oh my gosh, they just let me stop the rotation. Like this whole thing was built around a machine that I can like affect and mess with. And it was for like half a puzzle, it was like not even that important.
Yeah, it's bananas. Have you guys been exploring the Skylands much? I feel like we've always been like, we'll get back to it. We'll explore it more. Is this kind of the chunk where you spent more time up there?
I really want to. It's always rewarding when I do, but I feel like I've been to the easy ones already, where you just skydive out of the tower and can get right there. What I need to do is do it all again, but with the flying guy with me, because I keep never having any summons with me. But that one seems like it would really open up new possibilities.
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of them are just so high up. So you are doing like the the Death Star one that I went to last night, which I think was called Starview Island. I don't know if they all have different names, but it was a lot of like, you find a little cluster and then there's a couple, there's that big floating platform Zonai thing and then a couple of rockets. And then, you shoot that as far as you can, then you find the next little cluster. And it was very climby, like it was very like getting to the wind temple kind of thing to get high enough to like even get into these higher sky islands. So those are the ones that I'm, it's like, it's hard to know where to go to get them, but I always find them really rewarding when I like make my way all the way up that high.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of like, it's such a wild idea for Nintendo to do that preview, like the big hands-on preview. It seemed like a bulk of it was just like setting people up on a sky island and be like, all right, good luck, try to get you to their sky island, like build something for the Zonai devices. And I feel like I haven't really done that much of it yet, of just trying to like, it's like, if I can launch myself from a tower and I can get there, that's great. But I haven't been like, this is my objective, just make some flying machine to get to that other one. And I feel like that's a whole new avenue of fun that I have to explore yet.
Yeah, I've been exploring, I've been doing almost exactly that this time, and it's because I have a lot of battery.
Really?
Now. Like exploring the depths enough and doing, this is a kind of separate conversation, but there are bosses, like the bosses from the temples are in the depths, just kind of like around.
What?
And if you kill them, you get a chest that has like a 100 crystallized shards,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
just a whole new battery slice. And so I have probably 8 full batteries. And so I can fly for like a long time now. And so I've been going from one sky island to another.
Wait, hang on. The bosses are in the depths? Like, where?
Truly just around. Like, if you look on the map, you can see a little, what looks like a stone circle. And often they're just there. Like, I fought the one from the, and like multiples of them too. So I fought the one from the Wind Temple a couple times, and I fought the Water Temple one, and they're just there, and you can fight them again and get rewards.
That's amazing. I like the idea of the
I love
depths
this
just
game.
being like the unconscious of Link. Just everything that he's ever encountered is just swirling around in this mess of darkness down there. Mason Cowell writes in, kind of similar with you, Jacob. They say, I had an absolute game-changing realization yesterday. I've been fighting the time balloons and gliders to get to the higher sky islands, but realized I've been making it way harder than it needs to be. With the best hoverbike build, the fan control stick at a 45-degree angle and another fan, I can just pull back on the stick and go straight up for as long as my battery lasts. And with 7 or 8 batteries and full Zonite armor, I can take off from the ground and fly for several minutes straight up. I love how much upgrading the battery opens up the options in this game, says Mason Cowell. I am so I jealous. I have one and 1/3 battery at this point. Because I finally, got the charges, because I finally went back and found that forge that Leo, we were missing in the last episode of like, okay, I got to go back to the starting area, and then you take the minecart down. That was the part I was missing that was confusing on the map. But then it's like you can only get 30 at a time there. And so I just have to keep going back there to get 30 more. So it's kind of a slow process for me, at least, unless I guess I dive headfirst into the depths.
I've been being snotty and stubborn about it with those forges. I'm like, I need to be presented with another one. I've put 40 hours into this. Show me a second forge. And I have never found one.
I just go to the depths, right? They're down there.
They're only down there. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there you go. They're at the starting Skyland and then only the depths?
Yeah.
Normal.
That's why you go to the depths. That's like the number one reason.
Oh, God. I mean, just there's so much under the ocean here for this iceberg. Like, I'm intimidated by this game as much as I'm loving it, thinking about people like Kyle Hilliard, who's going to be joining us for the next episode. But he has put, over 140 hours into this game so far. And it's just, I'm so scared of that idea of I know I don't want to be a completionist. I'm fine missing some shrines, and I am barely interested in the side stories and little side quests and stuff like that, but still knowing that there's so much out there that I could stay busy with. We should have more of that Xenoblade level dread and fear in our hearts, Kelsey, but it turns out the game like this without I was going to say without a concrete story ending, but I guess it does have that, but this just feels so much easier to slip into and lose the time to, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I love Xenoblade, obviously, but this is definitely a lot more chaotic with it's very easy to just forget the story entirely and do whatever the heck you want. And you will hit a wall in Xenoblade eventually if you're playing it that way.
Right. Let's see. So many great comments. We can go anywhere here. Ethan wrote in saying, now that we've been through all the temples, how do y'all feel about the changes to dungeons in this game versus Breath of the Wild and the Zelda series as a whole? Like a lot of people, I was disappointed in the lack of proper dungeons in Breath of the Wild, and while the temples in this game are better than the Divine Beasts, I don't feel they got all the way back to the great temples of older Zelda games. I was also disappointed there are still only 4 of them. I do like the shrines, but a bunch of smaller disconnected puzzle dungeons aren't the same. Am I out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong? Great question, Ethan. Great question. What's your all's read on dungeons so far? Temples, I should say.
The water one was the first one that I had fun with, but I think I am the wrong like demographic for that, because I was never a big fan of big dungeons in Zelda games, and I'm not even a huge fan of the temples in these games, but I mean I liked the water one. Yeah. So I think it's just I think there's just kind of two schools of thought. You know, there's like I like traditional Zelda, you know, that entire gameplay loop, and then I like the new kind of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style of Zelda. And I think a lot of us here, at least for me, I definitely like these newer games more. Yeah. But I think it's just different. Like they are entirely, you could call this something else. You could call this not Legend of Zelda, and that would be totally valid, you know? Link's Adventure. Yeah. I'm in the exact same camp as you. Of like, I'm not the person to champion old dungeons and stuff. So even every temple I run into, like I don't have that like, oh, now I'm feasting on a cake. Look at all these puzzles thing that I think a lot of people do with those. It just feels like, oh, this is just going to be a bigger roadblock before I get back to doing what I want to do, which is climbing a mountain slowly until I can get to that tower. Like that's all I want to do in this game.
4 mini shrines, but none of the puzzles are really as interesting as the ones you get in shrines.
Right. Which it blows my mind. Like on Kit and Krista's podcast, they're formerly at Nintendo, and it was interesting hearing them react to this, but they're playing through and loving the game, but they had the take of just like, Nintendo completely blew it on the messaging here, because like it seemed like number one complaint going into this is fans were like, we want old school dungeons. And then they did like that, you know, little interview Nintendo did about Tears of the Kingdom, and in that, like the art director said like, hey, you want dungeons? We got them. They're bigger and longer and more complex than you could ever imagine. Here you go, old Zelda fans, was basically his quote. And then Kit and Krista, is fascinating hearing them be like, I don't know what Nintendo's doing, because they like tweeted out that quote in particular. Like they were definitely pulling from this art director's quote to message like, your old dungeons are back. And it's like, it's not really true. Like I don't know how angry people are out there, but like, it feels like they were doing a little lying like in the days before release. So it's like, just stop calling them dungeons at this point.
Can I get a quick rundown of what we're missing from classic dungeons? Is it like small keys?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, it's like, I know what Nintendo's thinking. They're thinking people will like when we say this.
It is, yeah. Right.
You know,
right.
Like, yeah, I think the thing that I like classic Zelda dungeons, even though I frequently have to look up like a walkthrough for them or whatever. But like, what you're missing is the sense that you're doing smaller individual puzzles that are leading towards a larger puzzle in a way where it is like, I have a greater, at the end of this, I understand how like all of the cogs of this thing are turning and fitting together. And this has like a very literal version of that, where it's like literally
four things or whatever.
You do 4 puzzles and then the locks come off. But like, you know, I always think about like the Twilight Princess water temple, which was all about like redirecting flows of water into places to like make water levels rise or fall in order to access different areas. And like doing it required you to have this like holistic understanding of like every room in the dungeon is doing something and I get all of it. And so at the end of it, you know, it's like I'm putting 20 different pieces into place to do it. And this is, you know, not that. It's just for mini shrines. And so, I don't know. I think honestly, Nintendo is like, yeah, people complained about this, but like most of the people who bought Breath of the Wild don't care.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm really curious
don't
how many
want that.
people's like first Zelda game it is, and so it's like old gamers are loud, but they're not actually the majority.
That is interesting though, because I didn't have the words for that, but it's like what you said about why they used to be better. That's what I felt doing the Lightning Temple. I was like, oh, this is more fun, and it does feel a bit more like I'm progressing and like completing it in a cohesive way. Certain things aren't accessible until you solve one puzzle, which is like, okay, now I have access to do this.
Yep. And that one's just
I almost
bigger.
feel like the it called the Zora Waterworks, the like sort of lead up to
Yep.
the water temple was kind of like that, where it felt very like I have to do this in order to do this in order to do this, and I mean it's still probably a much smaller version than sort of a traditional dungeon, but like that felt kind of like what you're describing, where it felt like you sort of had to understand why you were doing things and where to go next.
But even then in that one, I got the water halfway up and it was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just building a giant bridge up to the platform that I have to get to. And I feel like that is like the thing that Nintendo just can't design around if you want that kind of really classic old school dungeon of just like all those dungeons were built on the idea of like, okay, we're going to give you the hook shot in this one. So first things first, here are all these things you can't do until you have the hook shot. And like, that just doesn't work here. Even if they had like held back an ability for you, like you just make up for it with all your other abilities. And I think as soon as they tried to roadblock you into something like that, people would be like, oh, this sucks. Like you're just forcing me to do it the way that you want me to do it.
I know we talked about it last time, but I do think that the way to go would be for them to release DLC where it's kind of like the naked combat shrines, except that with like equipment. And it's like, here's a standalone huge dungeon. You don't have your ultra hand. You get nerfed again going into this thing. Have at it. And here you go, old school fans. If you really want a complex dungeon, I swear we can still design one. It's just we need to remove all your other tools to actually make it function here.
Yeah, and it's like I did really enjoy in the Lightning Temple, which I agree with Leo felt kind of the most temple-y. I loved breaking those puzzles.
Yep.
I liked thinking, haha, it wants me to solve it this way, but instead I'm going to like telekinesis a mirror out into the middle 100%. And like aim behind my head and hit this thing. And I don't know how I'm supposed to do it, but it's funny that I can do it this way, which is the kind of magic of this. Is like it's fun to break them and they want you to do it.
Yeah. Especially in that specific temple, because with all the mirror stuff lighting up the specific points, when you like don't have line of sight with the thing you're supposed to light up, there's that like 3 seconds of it filling where there's that tension of like, am I going to get a freeze frame and find out that I did it, or is it just wasting my time here?
Or is the battery going to last long enough for my hovering platform out there in the middle of nowhere to beam that light back? Okay, I got it. Thank God.
Right.
Starkiller wants to know, speaking of Death Stars, hey, how do we feel about the naked shrines? I get annoyed every time I run into one because early on the enemies do so much damage and they're frustratingly hard, but later on in the game you have so many hearts that they're mainly just a hassle. I prefer the puzzle shrines anytime, says Starkiller.
I agree they're pointless with too low hearts, but I think they're really cool at this point. I think they're so much better than the combat ones in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I've liked a couple of the ones that I did. There was one where it just gave you so it wasn't the fighting Roomba one, which everyone keeps talking about, which I still haven't found, but it was something like it gave you car pieces, and then somewhere in the shrine had like a big, spiky thing you could put on the front to make it a big horrible bulldozer. And
yeah, I think we talked about that as the Mad Max shrine.
Yeah. I liked the Mad Max shrine, and it was funny because I think I just didn't catch the name of the shrine at first, so I totally failed the first time because I was just like running from construct to construct trying to kill them with terrible weapons, and that is not the way to go. It is build a Mad Max car, and I think that kind of stuff is fun. But if it's literally just you're naked and it's a difficult, I mean, I haven't run into any of those like that, but maybe that is a thing where you're just kind of naked and you have to do combat. That's not as fun.
Yeah.
I ran into my first naked one when my girlfriend's parents were over sitting around.
Oh, good.
Working on stuff. And that was wordless. None of us
They were
talked
like,
about it.
what'd you say this game's called?
Did they bring out
With all-
the shame bell from Game of Thrones and start ringing it in that moment, or?
It was implied.
Okay.
All the naked ones I've found so far have enough fun secrets. I was frustrated with them at first for sure, but they have enough secrets that it's like, oh, I can do another run of this and feel like it went completely differently, especially as I find out like where the hidden things are. And it matters so much that they can hide just like one spike ball somewhere. And you're like, oh yeah, if I fuse this to the one stick they gave me, it's the best weapon I could possibly make in this shrine.
Yeah.
And other stuff too, like destructible pieces of the environment. There was one where there was like a bunch of guys shooting at me and I figured out I could like destroy the supports for the platform they're standing on and drown them.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the answer is like they are all puzzles. You know, if you're just trying to approach them like, oh, it's so annoying that they took all my weapons away, then it would suck. But like they're puzzle shrines too. They're just puzzle shrines where the guys are attacking you.
It's kind of
Right.
like, okay. Yeah, it's like a...
And I don't know how many hearts they're at where it seems like just time killing, but they still can get you in 2 hits. Like without any armor on,
Yeah.
a lot of hearts go down.
Is anybody else at that phase too, where every time you get a new heart, like you're just crossing every finger on your hands and toes that you're going to get that second row, but it's not quite there yet?
Yes, and they keep not giving it to me.
I want that. How long can one row go? Give me that second row, baby. Yeah. Actually, there's a combat shrine that I couldn't beat. Like, if I had more time, I probably could have got past it. But it maybe was the one you're talking about, Leo, because it's called the Flow Shrine, and it's pretty far down south. I forget exactly what it is, but there's kind of like a moat, and it's a lot of them shooting like electric arrows at you, and you have like a couple boxes in the beginning you can kind of use to block. I was like, man, this is so frustrating.
Yeah, I did that one. That one is rough, and it is like those kind of shrines. Normally, when you come across a shrine, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do this. You know, it's like 2 minutes, and sometimes some of the combat ones, it's like maybe I should just put a star on this one and come back to it when I actually feel like spending a half an hour on this one.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one had less of an easy kind of gimmick that you could exploit, and it was just you had to get on one of those rafts, you have to kill one of them in order to get, you know, like whatever items they were carrying in order to make better arrows, and that one took some trial and error. I had one where it was a very vertical map, and I kind of just ran past everyone and got up to the top, and then there was one of those spiky grids, and I just spent like probably a half an hour picking it up and holding it, kind of like trying to figure out how I could hold it above them, you know, like 3-4 floors down, and then just dropping it on them and then using recall to bring it back up. And I just like spent so much time trying to drop it. It would kind of like slide down the wall sometimes, but it would still hit and do like a little bit of damage. And I just spent so much time like, I don't want to actually fight these guys. I'm safe up here. I'll just continue exploiting this one spiky shield. And it worked pretty well.
It's perfect. Piet van Roosmalen, sorry for butchering your name. They ask, what were your favorite shrines? Mine, I think is the one you were talking about before. Mine was the A-Team Shrine, where you could fly into a cage and have copious amounts of Zonai devices to build an insane killing machine. My first car had homing flame and ice throwers, lasers, and cannons, with spikes covering the front. It had one design flaw, though. When I drove past a construct, the homing weapons followed it, not taking Link into account. He was set on fire and blasted off the car. My solution was a fire hydrant aimed at Link, so he had a permanent shower for when the car set him on fire.
Awesome.
Yeah, does anybody have a favorite overall shrine?
There have been a couple physics ones that have been equal parts frustrating and very funny. I saw actually Kotaku wrote up something on like what they refer to as the pinball shrine.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're just attaching rods to a thing and like smacking a big ball into a target.
It's the old baseball game, yeah.
Again, it's like the physics are amazing where it's like if you hit it with like the end of the pinball thing that you hit, the ball just goes so fast and it really feels good to like rocket it into those buttons at like 100 miles an hour. But also, I did find that you can just activate those buttons with bomb arrows. And so if you want to just like not do the shrine, you can just bomb them and like that's it. That's
I definitely took the lazy route of like just picking up the ball at a certain point and just trying to like push it into the object over and over again. Like, oh, come on, this isn't doing it. But that just made me...
I like about that like pinball solution, because I experienced that of like, oh, I need to hit it at this point in the flipper for it to go the right way. I feel like I'm learning things about basic like physics fundamentals from playing this game. Some of the puzzles are just like learning something new about how physics seem to work.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it was a tweet maybe from a like high school physics teacher who said that he was like using this game to teach kids, and kids would come to him with like schematics for something they dreamt up in Tears of the Kingdom and be like, would this work? And like and I think there is something to that. Like I don't feel like I'm any good at physics, but this is the only thing that's made me like care that I'm not good at physics and want to get better,
Yeah. One of my favorite shrines was the one, I'm trying to remember what, like, I don't know what they were made out of. There's that one where you have to like hold the balls underwater. You know what I'm talking about with auto hand? Then you let go and they like rocket out like you're holding a beach ball underwater. But it's just like that type of just like Nintendo, they're just so good at realizing it. This simple thing, trying to hold a beach ball underwater, then letting go and watching it shoot up and do things, like that is inherently fun, and they're on top of it.
Oh, there's the bingo machine one. Did you guys do where there's like a water wheel in the middle that's just turning, and you essentially have to make a scoop because there are like 40 of those balls in the bottom, and you only need to get one to activate a little thing on the top. And so you make like a claw, and then the wheel goes through and grabs a bunch of balls and then dumps them up top, and it's just like, man, how'd you do that?
That sounds great. I haven't
sounds
seen
awesome.
that one. I like the paddle boat one where you have to make the whole paddle boat thing that like goes across that little track. There's like multiple kind of like race lanes for different paddle boats if you want to make a bunch at once or whatever. But
there's a really frustrating monorail one. Did anyone do that?
I don't remember.
Where it's like you have like rails, like a minecart track, but you have to build something that essentially holds you below it.
Yes. Yep.
And I that one I kind of cracked, and I looked up a solution, and it was like almost exactly the same thing as what I had built, but like the fans were in a slightly different place, and I was like, that was the only one that I've done that I was like, this seems like it's like too finicky, the solution.
Yep. It was a lot of just kind of futzing of like, all right, just put a wheel here. I think I don't really understand how the physics works, but it feels like this would work. Okay, let's try rotating it. Okay, it seems to be moving a little bit. That's good enough for me. Let's see. Steve Belagard writes in and says, I love the change of the main color scheme for the shrines in this game compared to Breath of the Wild. I get so excited when I see that hint of neon green and blue off in the distance. I find it really draws me in more than the orange used in the last game. I forgot that they even changed the color, but there you go, Steve.
That's a good deepest dive comment.
There it is. What's your all's stamp strategy or pin strategy in this game? Are you using all of them? Are they all over the place?
Yeah, I wish they gave you more options, because I can't even remember. I have defaulted to like, well, I'll just use a star for that one because none of the other ones fit. And so now I have like 10, 15 different stars, and they all mean different things, and I can't remember everything. I need like, I know they wouldn't do it, but I need to like pull up the virtual keyboard and just like make notes for these things. I want the what was it Wind Waker's, or where you could like just like draw directly on the map?
Phantom Hourglass,
with the stylus. Yeah. And I need that option.
It's funny. Taylor Witt is right there with you saying, hear me out. Tears of the Kingdom needs a journaling mechanic to keep track of all the conversations, rumors, and points of interest that don't get recorded in the adventure log. How cool would it be to replicate the investigative systems from games like Obra Dinn or Case of the Golden Idol? As you discover new areas and meet new people, those keywords get placed in a hypertonic word bank that allows you to craft your own quest lines or even organize clues about a rumor or a mystery. Simple, really. And boy, would that help in a world full of diversions.
Hey, remember when video game manuals were a thing? And a lot of times they'd have like 3 pages at the back that were for notes. And we were probably always like, what the heck do I use this for? Well, this is a game that could really use that.
Do you think the physical version of it in the manual for this, do you think they have a note section, or is that just completely
There's no
nullified?
manual.
Excuse me?
There's no manuals of like any Switch games.
Really? I guess I didn't even notice that.
I mean, I have, I don't know, probably like 80 Switch games and like physically, and 3 maybe have manuals.
Oh my god. It's so sad I didn't even realize it.
And they're mostly like, a little 2-sheet of paper, a little fold thing.
Well, you
It's
can write on
terrible.
that. You can write on a napkin, Kelsey. Anything's
That's
the
true.
note
I mean,
section for a manual.
I'm surrounded by notebooks, but I want it to like be the Zelda notebook that
Right.
that is provided to me for this purpose.
Pay up. I'm sure they're selling one somewhere.
The only map insignia that I'm proud of is in the depths, the little ascend platforms. I mark with a leaf for leave.
Nice.
Excellent.
I use those for Koroks that I haven't solved yet.
Yeah, where it's like, buddy, I'll take
think
you
that's
to
what
your
you're
friend
supposed
some
to-
other day.
Yeah, I feel like they have an idea of what that key means, but like it's not super intuitive. Like a couple of them are like, a little skull, the little skull icon I use for like strong dudes, like
Right, right.
like a Lionel or whatever. Like I'll put that down, but I don't know. I don't feel like I understand what they're going for with the things that have been provided for us, and I do wish we had either more options or just just the ability to make like a key for ourselves. Like, okay, I am using leaves to mean this, so don't forget that. Like, don't accidentally use the star to mean 3 different things.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I
that's
wonder.
my one experience with the pins is putting one that didn't. I was looking for one that matched what I wanted. It didn't at all, and then later I saw it on the map again and said, "What on earth was that?"
Exactly.
But it's a weird thing because, like, I'm sure they don't want to be explicit about it. Like, here are the pins. It's a Korok. It's a boss icon. It's this because, like, they don't want you to go in and open the map and be like, okay, well, here are the 6 things that I can encounter in this world, So, like, we need a little bit of that. This is the metaphor for what this represents to me angle, just so it can kind of remain a mystery.
Elden Ring had the same system, and I don't remember having that problem, but maybe it's just because there were the only one I ever used was like too hard to fight guy over here and over here. Didn't have as much variety.
Has anybody fought a too hard to fight guy in this game? Because, like, for me, like, I've seen a couple of Lionels, and I'm like, I'll see you later, buddy, and haven't really gone near them.
Yeah, I fought a bunch of like everything else, but not Lionel.
Okay.
Have you
They're,
fought a Gleeok yet?
I haven't.
The 3-headed
What is
dragon?
that?
Oh, I think
Oh,
I
no.
did the ice one. I like touched them. I think that's about it. Yeah. Have you fought them?
They're tough. It's cool that it has like they are almost more like fighty fights than the dungeon bosses, which are more kind of like puzzles. But the Gleeoks are really cool because you have to they're flying and you have to shoot them in the head to bring them down, and then like halfway through the fight they go really, really high and generally start an attack that has like some way of puzzling. Like you can use reverse on one of their things to like send yourself up to them. But they're really intense. And then I did a Coliseum in the depths that was just like 5 Lionels in a row, and I kept dying, but it saved after each one, and so I pushed through it. And after an hour and a half, I did it, and it gave me Majora's Mask.
Jesus, that's cool. Jews10 writes in on Patreon. They say, I've defeated 3 Gleeoks. I love how the different locations where each of the fights has taken place caused me to change up my strategies fighting them. The first one I fought was in the ruined Coliseum. I was able to use Ascend to go up to the floors to dodge his attack and use my glider for headshots. The second one was in an area with pillars I used for cover. I built a fire and used pine cones to rise up for headshots. The last one was on a bridge with no cover. I loaded up my horse with various building pieces and built myself a tower that I could stand on top of and shoot at it with arrows. That sounds fantastic.
Cool.
I feel like I need to train myself in basics of combat again. Like, genuinely, I really haven't been using the parrying. I haven't been using like that flurry strike, like the shield, like all of those barely advanced ways of fighting in this game. I haven't been doing. It's been like just rock bottom simple stuff for me so far. Just, I hit them and then I shield and then I hit them again at the end.
I never parry either, if that makes you feel better.
It does. Thank you. It does. Thank you.
The parry is like a show off move. Like it really, it's not even the flurry rush is good against Lionel specifically because it's hard to hit them otherwise, and they have very clearly telegraphed attacks. But it's like, especially for those big bosses like the Gleeoks, you're never using any of that.
Yeah.
You're just running away from attacks.
Okay. Let's see. Mason Cowell says, I love planning ahead and taking advantage of the desperate strength night weapons. If you're at 1 heart, all these weapons do double damage, making a 60 or a 70 strength weapon, getting down to 1 heart, making them just stupid strong. And then playing this game like a Souls game, just inches from death at all times, it makes the combat a lot more satisfying. That does sound good.
Yeah, I think that's part of why I like the combat shrine so much, is because it's like all about decision making. I get a little bored with the combat out in the world, and that's why I think I should beeline to auto build and start being like a builder who makes like spinning death weapons that do the fighting for me, because I don't really like engaging with it.
Yep, you should do it for sure. Also, look, not to be negative. Game of the century, no doubt about it. But I was just realizing last night, like the basic combat music, like I don't know if it's good. Like you hear it so much, the dun 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 dun. It's like imagine if this was just a song that was slightly more appealing than this. It's just a lot of it over and over again. Rich,
fair.
Thank you,
also,
Leo.
I'm not sure how they determine this, if it's based on like hearts or how many dungeons you've done, but like somewhere in there they started throwing in those silver bokoblins that take like 40 times as much damage as the normal ones, and I feel like every time I'm fighting, everyone else dies, and then there's just this one guy who I'm spending like minutes smacking around.
Yeah, I had the toughest time in the town. I don't know if y'all did it. That's way down south of just trying to clear the town of pirates, where there's like that pirate ship in the bay. You know what I'm talking about? And so doing that, I had the toughest time trying to find the last guy in there. Did you do the same problem, Jeffem?
Yeah.
And then it turns out he was hiding down the well.
In a well, yeah.
Which is like in my
Classic.
mind, like, the well. It's like that's a huge thing that I'll get to later on. It's like, who knows where that's going to go. But like I scoured that pirate ship 1,000 times. Like, oh no, it turns out he was just a schmuck just sitting at the bottom of a damn well.
I did that too, and they did. There is smoke coming out of the well because he has a fire down there.
Okay.
But yeah, it certainly felt like one of like. The biggest challenge of that encounter shouldn't be, okay, where is this last guy that I need in order to get that last sliver of, overall health bar down.
Right.
But that was, I enjoyed once you finally found that guy and killed him, like I enjoyed the rebuilding of that little village down there. Where you basically just have to get a bunch of resources to help them build each of their little shops, and then it was an interesting kind of reward for that, where they basically said like, look, we don't have a lot of resources or anything, but every time you come here, you can sleep in the inn for free because you rebuilt the inn. You can have a free meal because you rebuilt the restaurant. Like it was just like your reward is just the generosity of the people that you helped like rebuild their little village. And that was kind of nice. Also because the rewards I usually don't care about anyway.
Right.
So that had a nice little twist to it.
Yeah. Spencer P wrote in saying, first time submitting something. Thank you, Spencer. Thanks for your support. Saying, I started in the South, mostly with my aimless wandering, especially looking for stuff from the first game. Plus I needed to liberate Lurillin, which is the name of that town. Lurillin was a fun stealth section, especially early game. But once you get some fairies and upgrade your armor a bit, it is night and day from early game. Going from being one shot to only taking a quarter heart of damage is wild. And then Micah Tillman says, finally found my boy Bolson in Lurillin Village. The sound effects during the rebuilding scenes with Bolson's lone voice doing the yeah and rah chants all alone and gaps where the rest of his crew's voices were in Breath of the Wild is heartbreaking. He was taken in by the village chief? Did Hudson steal Bolson's business and home? Unclear. You tell us, Micah. You tell us about the lore of your dear boy. I wish I knew it as well as you did. Did you go to Eventide Island, Jeffem? Like just south of that?
Which one was that?
It's southeast of that town that you can take back. And the first game is like, all right, you kind of get stripped down and you got to go conquer it. And then in this one, I was kind of disappointed by it, where it's just like, I thought I had big plans in my mind for what they're cooking up this time on that island, but it's like, hey, there's kind of just like 3 pirate camps that you need to take out, and then like fly in the back, and there's a little pirate ship that you take out as well, and then you just kind of get like just 1 material for defeating it. That doesn't seem that great.
I felt like I was missing something, because in those pirate camps, they had like the materials to seemingly build big mechanized weapons, but I was like, well, I have a very high damaging sword, so I'm not gonna do that. It felt like it was built for them taking away all your weapons, but then they didn't do it. Because I guess they just have shrines that are Eventide Island shrines now. But under there, I found my in the depths under Eventide specifically. I found my favorite helmet, which is Midna's hat from Twilight Princess.
Really?
Which is very fun to run around and wear.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm still just wearing like the Hylian knight armor that I found underneath the castle from just going back in that cave that's in kind of your home base area if you go all the way back, and I had it last time too. And then I finally took off the deity mask. I really loved having that for such a long time, but it's like it kind of robbed Link of his face, his personality. Like as you're running around with it, you know, it's because I'm doing all these big cutscene moments, and it's just like him with the blank stare. So I was excited to finally.
He's not like that expressive otherwise.
But I want to see like his. I want to see his
At least
hair.
he has eyes, though.
Yeah, I want something. So I was very excited to finally
At least he's still Link and not just some weirdo.
That's right. But I was excited to get like the earrings that boost your defense. So like finally I can get like Link's flowing hair and some cool earrings and a big boost in defense. That'll do it for me.
How many Great Fairy fountains have y'all found?
1?
Just the one, yeah.
Yeah, I've still I've found more than 1, but I have not like gathered the band to open the other ones, and I really should, because I'm hitting a point where it's like this armor feels not very good for what I'm doing.
Yeah, pumping up that defense helps a lot. Which you get from the multiple other ones. And I think someone mentioned this last week, but if you upgrade the flight suit ones, you can just fly straight into the ground. Like there's no fall damage. So you can just rocket down from an island and just hit the ground.
That sounds great. God, I had the dumbest moment while playing this session where I was using recall on a rock that fell to go straight up, and it was one of those where like, all right, the rock went up and it got to the top and there's just nothing up there. It's like, where did this rock fall from? I don't get it. It's like, all right, that's fine. So then just stopped recall, and then the rock fell again. I'm like, all right, time to go back to Earth. Here we go. And so skydove down, but then I skydove into the rock as it was falling back to Earth, and I died from fall damage. It's like, God damn it, what a stupid thing. Great game. Chris Reardon says, after you complete the last Great Fairy mission with the Stable Trotters, I love their music, by the way, Mastro asks Link what his name is, and then he says, in honor of this genuine hero, let us be known as the Stable Heroes. Why did he ask Link's name if he wasn't going to put it in the band name? Yeah.
Well, he heard it and was like, that's stupid. I'm not using that.
Surely there's something else. God,
I can't work with it.
I wish Link was able to name himself in this game.
There are enough times that someone asks you what your name is that I almost wonder if there was like a mechanic at one point where you could write your own name, because like every time you do one of those skydiving challenges, it's like the robot's like, hey, what's your name? I'll record your high score.
Right.
Oh, Link. And it was like, wait, well, so I mean, if you did multiple, you could like compare your score to your friends maybe, but just everyone is named Link, so it doesn't matter.
I do like that idea, like, you know, jumping into the future now. Link's just like, I got a whole new identity, man. You wouldn't recognize me from my past self. I got a cool nickname now. The name's JG. I don't know. What do you name yourself in games, Jacob? What do you go for?
Oh yeah, JG.
JG.
That's the one.
All right, cool guy. Wacko wrote in. They say, on the map, caves you visited have a check mark beside them if you've gotten the bubble frog inside. I've come to understand nearly every cave has one of the bubble boys. That's very cool. The armor is 10 out of 10 that the bubble frog gem merchant gives you after a few dozen bubble gems. Where is this merchant? Has anyone found him?
You gotta find him.
None of us have still found him.
Oh my God.
No,
I
found
have.
him.
Okay.
Yeah, and he eventually moves to. Does he move to Terrytown or Hateno?
I think he's just kind of nearby stables at night is where I've found it. He's got like a really big, ridiculous looking balloon. And I've just like, when I've been at a stable at night, sometimes I've kind of seen him like a little ways away.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. Luke in the comments is saying his brother moves into Terrytown.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but at dusk, his balloon like shows up at dusk, and I think stays out most of the night. But yeah, it's in random locations. I don't know if you have to go to the first place that he is before he starts moving around or not. It's one of those many things where it's like, yeah, you can play 40 hours without, if you don't go to this one place and, you know, trigger this one thing or get auto build or whatever. And that's kind of cool, but also kind of frustrating sometimes. I don't know where I land on it. I
think it's worth it. It makes it so much more fun to try and unpack. But yeah, I finally got to deposit those pose that were piling up, and I was excited to get like, oh, I think the dark tunic looks awesome. But is that store going to get updated at some point? Because I feel like I got so many more pose, and I don't know what else to do with it.
This is a big... I made a big mistake here because I went to that first store and he had the one item of clothing. And I was like, I guess that's all I can buy. I have 700 of these, so I'll buy a bunch of bombs. But if you exit the store and talk to him again, he's like, hey, I've got brothers under the ground. Pay me some pose and I'll show you where they are.
Ooh, okay.
And the price goes up, and then the ones under the ground sell you different articles of clothing.
Cool.
So it's not just that one in landing, whatever.
It is certainly alarming that they're still trading and dealing in human souls. Everyone else is like, I don't know, give me a rupee, that'll do. And they're like, 700 souls, please. Like, all right, buddy, you're my best friend. Spencer Martin writes in and says, seeing Terrytown again made my heart full, and the new home building minigame will absolutely consume me for the next 15 hours alone. I also love the return of the in-house music from previous Zelda titles when you're around your new property. This little section of the game has ultimate cozy vibes, and I am here for it. So Spencer, yeah, just that slowed down version, I think it is, of like the dun 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 dun.
How robust are we talking here with this house building minigame?
Man, I made like I spent $1,500 and started building out my house, but I kind of stopped there. But has anybody dug deeper to see?
I didn't even get to that part, but my wife has spent a lot of time on it, and she likened it to like modular, you know, shipping crate homes.
Right, right.
So I don't know. It sounds pretty in depth, but yeah. Just what we needed. Another thing to sink like another 20 hours into in this game.
Yeah, it was funny just like comparing the prices where I was like $1,500 for a home. And then I go to Kakariko and it's like, hey, do you want a hat? That's $5,000. I was like, I don't understand the economy here. I know that's like a side quest of like the store merchant is missing or whatever in that one, but it is confusing.
I don't know what to do in Kakariko. I kind of want to talk about Kakariko Village because I went there and I like didn't understand. Everyone was like talking about a thing and I could not figure out like what the quest was.
The big rings, like that Zelda
was
was
researching. You can't get anywhere
researching?
near it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, but you can, like, I managed to like sneak around and I kind of got on it, but everyone's talking about like reading slabs. And then there's that guy who's like, oh, if only I could like get to the slabs. And sometimes there's something you'll find what I think they are. And there's like a book next to it. And it's like, here's the translation. And I read that and I'm like, surely I'll be able to tell that guy about it now. But I haven't. Like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing because they just keep saying these 4 big rings that fell. And then I go to them and I can't find anything.
I'm with you 100%. I don't know what to do there either. I got stopped a couple times. I'm like, okay, maybe if I just dive on them from the top, but then of course it's Tears of the Kingdom. And I started to do that. And then I got distracted by something else. I'm like, you know what? Some dusty rings that they don't want me on. I think I can pass on that one.
No, it's like I did get on them.
Okay.
But I still couldn't find it.
Chad is saying it's mainline stuff that happens later.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Too bad.
That's helpful. Let's see. Oh, I like that in Terrytown, there's that little Goron who can defuse things. I was wondering if that would ever be an option. So Love is just like, oh, it's kind of like that. nickname guy in Pokemon. There's like, all right, here's this one little friend. If you can go find him, you can have this one little system that you might have wanted at some point in the game.
Nice.
Sarah Ripley writes in and they say, in one of the previous episodes, someone asked if anyone's been sucked up by a like in a cave. In my playthrough, Link hasn't been sucked up, but Spirit Tulin has. I was in HOIHO Castle, and the like turned away from me and sucked up little Tulin and spit him out. It's weird to me when the spirit acts like physical beings, but maybe it's just easier to not completely make them like ghosts. I don't know. I like the idea that likes can eat them. I have no idea.
I mean, they're hitting people. Like,
yeah,
they can't be complete ghosts. They got to have some sort of physical form, right?
That's right. Gavin C.
I think they just need an excuse to make them disappear when they get stuck on stuff, or you climb up some cliff that they couldn't get to.
That is probably exactly what it is. Yeah. It's a smart system because it is weird. Like when you're going around a temple, it's like, where's my buddy? It's like, oh, they could not physically get up to the spot. Like, what do you mean? Everyone's just kind of a little bit behind you at all times. So when they break that tradition by having the actual corporeal form, it's very bizarre. Gavin C. writes in and says, shout out to the Tulin spirit. It was cool getting the other spirits, and they are useful in a hard fight, but it's too crowded to have them all on. I always kept the Tulin spirit around for his gliding ability. I enjoyed him flying next to me and sniping enemies in the head. Yeah, he is very helpful. Yeah, it's certainly to the point of like whenever I stop and look around me, I realize like this is a weird game. Just have all these ghosts following me at all times.
Your ghost party.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, go.
Once I got my fourth one, I was like, let's have all the guys with me like everybody says you're supposed to, because you have all these features with you now.
Yeah.
Objectively horrible. You're constantly pressing the wrong one or pressing them on accident. Just these constant pop-ups as you stumble into them and they stumble into you. Does not feel good.
I feel like 2 is kind of the max for it being manageable at all. But yeah, I think Tulin's the one that I can very easily keep on at all times, and it's totally fine. I might every once in a while accidentally misfire a gust or whatever, but like it's 1 is super manageable, 2 is tricky, and then past that, yeah, it starts becoming just chaos.
I just leave them all on, and I just don't really mess with them. Like occasionally I'll use Big Goron Boy for like, okay, I don't want to use a bomb here, so I'll whip that out. But other than that, it's just kind of like, yeah, they're all behind me, and if I accidentally hit A on them at some point during combat, so be it. But I'm never strategizing with them, I think, in a big way.
You're not like spamming the pickup button though when you're running around, and then the Goron shoots and like explodes everything around you.
Yeah, I guess that can happen.
Yeah, what's been most frustrating has actually been the 2 that are useful in combat, which is Sidon and then the Gerudo lady, because it's like Sidon gives you a shield, which when you're fighting like a Lionel is huge, except it's not when I can't find him or I'm like running around, and it's like the other ones. It's all very weird because Tulin is completely useless. Like his ability doesn't do anything in combat, and so I never want to activate him. And then I'm like accidentally pressing him, and like Tulin and the Gerudo girl look pretty similar just by silhouette. So I always think I'm running to the Gerudo, and actually I'm running to Tulin, and it's I don't know. It is easily the messiest feeling part of this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dirty E wrote in, they say, who approved these controls? You have to go up to a Sage Ghost, press A, then A again. In the middle of combat or even exploring, it's annoying. Why not press down on the D-pad to bring up the Sage menu, then press the face button that represents that Sage? There are 4 face buttons after all. Yes, down on the D-pad is to call the horse. What horse? I barely use a horse.
100%.
Yeah. It's like now that you lay out the controls like that, like, we're not smarter than the Nintendo designers, but it is like, yeah, I would happily trade the ability to whistle for a horse that I accidentally call for every 2 hours to silence as a response versus like, holding down to then have direct control over those guys on the face buttons. That'd be so much better. But what do I know?
And this isn't a complaint. It's a perfect game.
It's a perfect game. Let's see. Brandon Milligan, also is complaining just about how unreliable they are overall. Is anybody using the Pro HUD, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really wish, I know we talked about it before, but I really wish I could have that map up, and that's the only thing. Like, I don't like seeing all the busy nonsense, like the sound meter and all that stuff, but I tried going to HUDless for a while in this game, and I just was popping up, the minus button to see the big map too often. And it's like, I need it in the corner just a little bit here.
I'm able to just tune all that out pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Regular tune link.
Last time we complained about the Goron at the front of your vehicle always doing stuff, but I've been flying a lot in the depths because it's so hard to just like walk on the ground there, and the Goron there is almost like radar, where I like shoot him out in front of me to make sure that I'm not about to like hit something, and so that is like one actually useful use I found for him.
I love it. Yeah, White Mex says the hover bike build, 2 fans with a control stick, is a legit game changer. I've been able to find all the light writs in a short amount of time, and in turn uncover all the shrine locations on the surface. Horses are now more useless than ever. Long live the hover bike! Yeah, that took me a little while because I tried building it and I was like, what? It just goes straight up? But it's like, okay, you do get at that 45-degree angle. It does seem very handy, even for low battery schmucks like me. Lorch Durden says, if you like a horse but there's no time to deal with the whole horse mechanics, you can make a box, throw the horse in it, and carry it that way to the closest stable. The horse is fine during the whole thing, says Lorch. Okay, so if you want a horse,
that so much.
Just desperate enough, but you don't want to try and tame it, I guess that's what you can do.
I've seen people do, I haven't seen like whole box, but I've seen people put like basically force the horse into a little box that doesn't have, it's just missing the one side so that they can run in, and then they can't go anywhere.
It's perfect.
They're stuck.
Brady G wrote in, they say, do y'all have any consistent builds you're using now? I have a motorboat, 2 boards with a fan and a steering stick for the water, a sand sled with 2 fans and a stick for the desert, and a hover bike for all other applications. AutoBuild is making it super easy to build these things and get around anywhere. Does anybody have a go-to vehicle other than maybe a hover bike?
In the depths, they have those piles of Zonai devices, and they're pretty consistent. And so I've just built a thing that's like a glider with 3 fans and 2 rockets attached to it, and those parts are just always there. Yeah. And so it's very useful to just pick one of those up and build it right away.
Yeah. I feel like on the land, I feel lazy, but I'm still just doing 4 large wheels and some sort of platform in the middle of it with a control stick and go for it. But it's like, it moves decently fast, but I always wonder, is there a way should I just be strapping rockets to that thing? Is there a way to pick up the speed just a little bit for a vehicle, for like a car?
A rocket? I do it.
Just blast a rocket.
I mean, I did make just a tricycle motorcycle the other day. That's just 1 small wheel in the front, 2 in the back, control stick in the middle, no wood or anything, just those. And it's also fast and maneuverable and feels cooler than standing on a big plank of wood. That's an option.
Yeah, it's weird that the steering stick is one of those valuable things. All right, there's that one dispenser to the north that has the steering stick, and I go back up there all the time just to pop it to get more and more of those things.
Yeah, there's others that have them too, but when I find one for sure, it's like, let's stock up on these because they're the one thing that every build I make needs.
Right. Let's see, back to Terrytown. Troy says, I never expected Hudson having a kid to be the piece of context I needed to show just how much time has passed since Breath of the Wild. I know there's also Purah aging, but this just feels so much more concrete. Yeah, that whole side quest, which, did anybody find her in the Gerudo town? I didn't. I was looking around a little bit, but I thought for sure she'd be like, hello, Link, welcome to the town. But maybe I just wasn't talking to absolutely everybody in that town yet. But Aegis of the Grell says, one of the most interesting parts of the game so far has been in Terrytown, where Kilton asks you to show him pictures of monsters so Hudson can make them into life-size models. One picture my partner took of a Horoblin on the ceiling has made me laugh to no end, since no matter how she tried to pose it, the game seemed to make it flip upside down to match the photo. And somehow, even with photos that have part of the monster missing, Hudson makes them perfectly. Does this mean the game records the exact pose a monster model is in when you take a picture of them just for this side thing?
I bet that's how it works anyway, right? It records like the information rather than the actually taking a photo. That could be wrong.
Yeah.
But for like recall and stuff, that's all like hidden numbers. That's not, recording the video of it falling or whatever.
I feel like I'm playing this game wrong because I've used my my camera to take one photo in the depths for that quest. And that's
all
it.
I've done too, but I hadn't yet hit a point where it felt like anyone was asking me for photos of anything else, so I didn't really understand the point unless you just enjoyed filling out a catalog, which not really what I'm playing this game for, but yeah, if it comes up later, then I'll probably just start doing it passively so that I have something ready for that.
It gets more useful when you unlock the Shrine Plus Finder, because then you can set it to any item that you have and it will start pinging you towards that item. So I took a picture of a bomb flower because I'm always low on bombs, and so now it just kind of leads me to the nearest bomb wherever I am.
Okay.
That's really cool.
So, yeah, I think it gets a little more useful. That gave me more reasons of I should take a picture of this before I pick it up, just in case I want to find more of them.
Yeah, at least for useful stuff. That's yeah. Okay. All right, I'll start taking photos of things.
Ari Sold in the Twitch chat says take a picture of treasure chests and track them in the depths. Is that you can do that? That's messed up.
That's weird.
That's messed up how good that is.
Jeffem, did you get the hero tracker at the same time as you got the sensor thing?
I think so, yeah. I think they... Oh, yeah, because you find Robbie and then he just gives you 4 different things that you can upgrade at the same time. And I think I already had most of the resources for all
Yeah,
of those.
it was a thing where I realized I was like, oh, this is supposed to be really early game, because he was like, I'll give you the hero tracker if you can find me information on 15 shrines. I have 60 shrines. Go ahead. And then he showed me the line, and the line is just just every piece of the map.
I looked at that and was like, oh, I'm apparently a madman, because it's just it'll go straight in a line and then it will go up and then it will just be this spider web in this one area and then off in a completely different direction, and it's a complete mess. But I also assume that will be helpful for trying to find the last things when you're playing. I assume that's why they made it in the first place, of just so you can look at it, you can look at some map of where all the Koroks are and then figure out if you've actually been in that location. That would be super helpful.
For sure. Photo mode
snap.
That
also reminds me though that I unlocked the teleporting thing or whatever, and I've never used it, and I don't know that I know how to use it.
You just place it on the ground. I don't have that yet.
Yeah, it's with Robbie. He'll tell it to you when you get the hero thing and the shrine.
Okay.
Pinger.
Jiren writes in, photo mode snap lover Jiren specifically, saying, I haven't yet made it to the next 2 phenomena because I've been so busy doing a ton of other stuff. I got the Master Sword. What? Does anybody else have the Master Sword?
Yeah, I feel like it's more of a story conversation thing, because it's one of my favorite moments of the game, but it's story stuff.
Okay, maybe we can cover it next week then, or next episode. So I got the Master Sword, got every light red in the depths, most shrines done, but my favorite new diversion is the stable photos. Every stable has an empty frame on the wall that you can inquire about. The stable owners will request a specific photo, which you have to take while out and about. They hang up the picture in the stable once you return, and it's very satisfying.
That's cool.
That does seem fun. I haven't done that yet. I feel so embarrassed that so many things with this game is that sounds cool. Haven't done it. That sounds cool.
I know.
Man.
This is supposed to be the deepest dive, but we're really leaning on everyone else to make sure we're actually diving on all of this stuff, because it's there's just so many little tiny this is just such a thick game. There's just so many layers, and you can a photo frame on the wall of the stable. They didn't need to do that. This would have been a 10 out of 10 game with or without that.
Right. So. You can stop. It's already dead. You already got the perfect Metacritic score. Please.
Just take a day off. Don't stay in the office and do this.
But that's what we got the final episode of the Deepest Dive for, so everyone can write in and we can mop up everything, which I'm not going to be on because I'm taking care of a kid. So it's up to you all to 100% this game while I'm out, I guess is basically the challenge. Let's see. Adam H. writes in. They say, did anyone else restore cheese to the Hyrule Kingdom in Hateno Village? Apparently,
Finally, one we've all done.
apparently they forgot how to create it in less than a generation. 5 said quest hoops to curdle through, come on, ranging from espionage to lobbying / bribing voters with mushrooms in order to restore faith in the village's democratic process. I really don't think these people should be voting. The new pizza recipe adding meat is kind of worth the hassle though. This is the second deepest dive in a recent memory with a secret vegetable loving / bordering weird obsessive side quest after Like a Dragonetian, says Adam. That is true.
Nice.
I don't think I was going through these comments this morning and I'm like, oh crap, I don't think I went to Hateno Village. I haven't been there at all.
Yeah, you rig a whole election, and it's where like all the fashionable mushroom hat wearing people come from.
Okay, the mushroom people. Got it.
Yeah, it's a fun, goofy kind of side quest.
That sounds great.
That's worth doing.
Roel writes in and says, did Zelda seriously just take over Link's house that he had to buy and upgrade with his precious rupees? The dear princess lives in a frickin' Hyrule castle and surely must have the resources to buy or build any other residence she could want, yet she has to take the one private space Link has in Hateno Village? And then Fernando says, okay, Zelda and Link are totally a couple, right? In Hateno, you'll find that Link's house from Breath of the Wild is now Zelda's. You explore it to find Zelda had in her possession some of Link's clothes. Why would she have them? Or live in his house? The answer is clear. Jokes aside, it's a really cool quest. Check it out if you haven't yet. So I haven't seen this yet. So it's just filled with Zelda trinkets now, your old house?
Yeah, she lives there.
That sounds like a fun idea.
We know that Zelda in this game is like evil ? So like maybe she's taking over Link's house because it's
She's
bad
a squatter.
Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's making him clean the bathroom.
What happened to the Link and Mipha thing?
What?
I thought it was like pretty heavily implied that they were a couple in Breath of the Wild.
Mipha?
Yeah, the
the
Zora
fish girl.
lady.
Oh, God. I don't know. Yeah, that should be his first
Why don't you
lines.
Google image search that, Ben?
All right.
See what comes up.
Mipha,
Safe search
candid
off.
photos, pretty cool. Sweet Jesus. Tokyo Game Life writes in, and they say the Hateno Village election side adventures have been my favorite so far. Bribing villagers with mushrooms, spying on politicians, exploring a vast interconnected cave system under the town, inventing cheese. Zelda excels at delivering engaging quests that don't always rely on combat. It ended up in a very heartfelt and satisfying way, both in terms of story and gameplay benefits. Players spent a lot of time in Hateno in Breath of the Wild, and the dev team revamped the town's atmosphere in a completely unexpected way. Yeah, boy, I know I'm really missing out now with this being the town to go to. Let's see, there's a lot of people, 3 people wrote in about something that sounds so cool, I'm going to save it, and so we can cover it on the next episode. So, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, I was so happy to be surprised by this. So it seems like a safe thing to save if we have to save anything. But I'll phrase it this way, in a cagey way. Did anybody encounter something in this section of the game that made them say, oh my God, this is a complete shock that the game has this? Okay.
That's a weird question to ask. For
Just
this
answer it,
game.
Kelsey. Yes or no? You're under oath. Okay. All right, good. Well, then it'll be a fun thing to talk about next episode. I don't know the best way to be cagey about it, but you'll figure it out. There's a big thing that we haven't really talked about in this, and I'll stop talking there. I'm overhyping it. It's a fine thing. Sean Mills writes in and says, I wanted to shout out the Foothill Stable, which has one of the most absurd side quests in a video game. A bunch of people at the stable are running around in their underwear, insisting that Zelda had instructed them to only fight in their underwear. If you follow the quest, it takes you to a cave where they demand you give them all your gear and show them how to fight with just your underwear. I expected they would end up stealing my gear, but instead it turns out they just misheard Zelda. I love how wacky they're getting with some of the side quests here.
I found that stable and I couldn't find like where I was supposed to go. They keep saying like, oh, everyone's going up the road to fight some monsters. And I keep going up the road and I guess there's a cave. I probably just missed the cave, but I kept looking. I'm like, where? The road just ends.
Did they mishear Zelda, or is that just evil Zelda like
Messing with
pulling one
them?
over on them?
Yeah, because
Yeah, I would think so.
Zelda's always saying things in this game. It's just like a random person's like, Zelda told me to eat rocks, so I did, and my teeth fell out. Like, it's just, and she's
telling me to
doing.
take all my clothes off.
It's both like grand scale evil and like individual level pranks that Zelda is doing on people.
Zelda's got a new YouTube channel. She's just doing a prank channel.
1 million
Stole my
subscribers.
boyfriend's house.
On the thumbnail, she's making the most obnoxious face possible. Let's see. Who are you? Oh, I know who you are. Let's see. Yarrow writes in and says, infiltrating the Yiga clan was my favorite side quest. Finding the base in the valley above Gerudo Desert, I needed the full armor set to enter. Has anybody done this one yet?
Oh no, yeah, I thought they were underground because there's a bunch of Yiga stuff. Like that's where you get the auto build from and whatever. But I guess I haven't spent much time in that desert at all.
What do you do? Because I got the auto build, and then he's like, "Follow me if you want," and takes off in his little airplane. Like, what happens if you just keep following the Yiga storyline down there?
I mean, the robot tells you, like, I'm detecting he's somewhere in the Lenaryu region. And so it gives you a general place, and then you can go down there and follow the statues again. And that happens several times with, like, increasingly silly boss fights.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
good. It's good stuff. But you don't, auto build's really the thing you get from it, and then you just get, like, schematics. And the schematics are, like, it's very funny how not useful they are. Like, one's like floodlights, and it's like a stake attached to a piece of wood with like 2 spotlights on it. When would I ever use that?
Oh, don't be naive. Have you not been on Reddit recently? Everyone's raving about the floodlights. It's a huge thing. So Yara says, finding the base in the valley above Gerudo Desert, I needed the full armor set to enter. There was no markers telling me where to go. Already having the shirt, I went back to where I got it for clues. Lo and behold, a map with symbols for other hideouts. I got the armor and was treated to a hilarious stroll through their base as if I was a new recruit. One member commented on my Link-like hair sticking out the top, and I did a challenge to earn the earthquake move the Blade Masters do, and a helmet that makes me immune to lightning. That sounds fantastic. I would like that. DKMY says, I was about 30 hours into this game before realizing that Nintendo let Link's hair out just so it'd look cool when he dives from the sky. Yeah,
True.
That's absolutely the way to go. And it does look so good. Nobby Buckles. Oh boy. Nobby Buckles says, so is Tears of the Kingdom the Mario Sunshine sequel we've all been waiting for? I think I had a little too much fun clearing up the sludge. Am I just simple, or was this extremely satisfying for everyone else as well on the lead up to the water temple? Yeah,
I totally thought that too.
it was very good.
I just like the hydrants a lot. Like the fact that you can just kind of hold that above your head and just do a full power wash simulator, like cleanup of an area is really nice. And it felt stupid because I did keep wanting to just like do cleaning, and I know that there's no like. It's gonna get clean when you do the temple, clearly. Like, there's no reason to do this.
Right. Man,
Yeah, sometimes you could tell there's something under there, and then other times it's like, no, that's just a mess in a corner, and I don't have to wash it, but here I am doing it anyway.
Yeah, I definitely had the situation of I found like that the island which you have to go to for the mainline temple quest, but the one that's like the big whale in the sky, the big fish in the sky. And so that was like one of the first sludgy places I went to, and I'm like, okay, well, clearly something happens if I get rid of all of the sludge on this whale. So I just like hosed down the whale for a while, waiting for my beautiful Zelda chime. It's like, oh, okay, nothing. All right, well, I tried. Whatever.
I also like if you have like a weapon with opal on it, you can kind of throw like a bouncing ball of water. And it was fun to get like if you got like bounces in different piles, you could be like, oh, one swing and it like bounces through 3 sludges and cleans them all up.
That sounds great. I'm so stupid.
Also, that fish island, when you line up the like teardrop thing, I love that. That was a big. I was very happy to see that.
I was excited.
Full disclosure, would never have figured that out if I had not already seen my partner get frustrated by it and figure it out. I was like, I don't think I would have ever like thought to shoot through some random pieces that look like a tear from a certain angle. It's really nice, but it's definitely not. I didn't feel like it was intuitive.
Well, I feel like they told you. There's like hints towards it of like the prophecy says shoot through the tear or something like that. But
Yeah, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be like a thing that was more like had a concrete form. Does that make sense?
Sure,
Like, rather
sure.
than because you're not actually shooting through a tear literally like it is or even physically, like it just looks like one if you line everything up correctly, but it's not like one single tear shaped rock or whatever, which I guess is what I
Right.
would have expected based on those hints.
yeah, I made the stupid mistake of like, okay, it lights up that spot in the middle of the water there with the glowy thing. So I was like, all right, game on. Here's the water temple. Let's go. So I jumped in there and swam out to the glowy thing and just kind of floated and then just slowly drowned and died.
Drowned, yeah.
Yeah, it turns out
Yeah, me
Sidon
too.
is to go.
I was going to ask Jacob, how has your not using fast travel been going? Because that segment specifically, it's a lot of, okay, go all the way up on the mountain, talk to this guy
Yep,
for 5 seconds,
yep.
then come all the way back. Like it seemed like the lead up to that temple was just run around and talk to a bunch of people. And that seemed like it would have been a nightmare without fast travel.
Jeff, that is the part that broke me.
Yep.
I know. Now my canon now is that Link has done all of the temples, and that gave him the power of fast traveling. But like, I had kind of been fudging it beforehand, and it was the moment where it was like, you need to get the Zora armor. That guy down at the bottom, he has an idea of where the Zora armor is. And he's like,
Yep.
oh, you got to get me a fish. Where's the fish? Literally the fountain you were just standing in. Like inches away from you where you had the conversation where the lady was like, I don't know where to get this fish. And so, yeah, that part really stood out to me as like, I guess fast travel is just a part of the game, so I can't say it wasn't thoughtfully designed, but like that quest line felt dumb just in terms of like top of the mountain, bottom.
Totally.
The back and forth in that, like all of that took, I don't know, like 3 times longer than the actual temple, which felt silly. Like I don't mind that it took a little while, but I do feel like when you start making the like running around and talking to people taking longer than the actual like puzzle solving and temple part, it's just like we could have done with a little bit less back and forth here.
And talking to the same people back and forth. It's like I'm just going back and forth to like I need a Zonai cell phone is what we need. And just like spawn a couple of those out, hand them out. We can coordinate a lot better than this.
Yeah, and then didn't we also have a tough time like finding the entrance behind the waterfall? Because there are like 3 or 4 different waterfalls like on the way up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's behind one of these things, but it's pretty well hidden there. You really got to squint to see like, okay, there's kind of a gap down here below this one.
It was the last waterfall I checked.
Yeah,
So.
it always is. It always is. Let's see. Yeah, and I like that idea of like the king. He's just like hiding out back there in that secret area because Zelda made a monster that hurt him. And he's like, well, I can't explain this. Everyone likes Zelda, so I guess I'll just go and silo myself inside of a mountain instead of trying to explain as the king what happened. But you know what? It's time for him to go anyway, so maybe he's a poor leader. Who's this? Michael Stevens writes in. They say, Lady Yona introducing herself as your best friend's fiance as the music cuts out had a wild energy. It almost felt like there should have been a record scratch with Link thinking, my boyfriend, best friend is engaged to this harlot? It turns out Yona's super lovely, though, and it's sweet that she calls you Sir Link. At night, after you finish the temple, when she stares wistfully at the statue in the center of the domain of Link riding Sidon into battle, it kind of made me feel bad that she's accepted she will always play second fiddle to Sidon's true love.
I did feel
That's
like
such a
that
weird
was so.
statue, too.
It is. I did feel like it was very silly to be like, yeah, it's your best friend, and he's engaged now, and you had no clue. It's like, are we really best friends? If I could have missed all of that, why are we not? This is where those Zonai cell phones would have come in handy, you know?
Would have been huge.
Sidon should have been texting me, hey, I'm engaged.
It was also example of that kind of like Nintendo beat you over the head storytelling where it's like, I don't know if you noticed this, but Sidon, he's afraid of losing other people.
Right.
and he just doesn't want to let go. Like they really hammered that about 15 times in a row, and it's like, okay, we get it.
Again, we're all in agreement. Game of the year, game of the century. I mean, I do feel like we've been nitpicking this episode. I'm trying to always put it in perspective, but like, definitely going through all the temple stuff. It's people brought it up too at an angle we can take, but like, I think the art for these characters are all awesome. And yeah, I'm totally with you, Jeff, where I'm like, am I supposed to care about Prince? I understand people wanted to F him in Breath of the Wild or whatever, sure. But like, can you just give me something other than he's worried about being a leader and he's going to repeat that over and over again? Just give me something more interesting than his design, because I feel like every character
falls. His thumbs up.
There is that.
Yeah, he does that little like.
But could
all the time. Yeah.
Could any
Hey, new min-max gif, everyone. Get that.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for some character to say something interesting at some point, I guess, for the main temple people. I think in flashbacks there's some interesting stuff with Raru that I'm a little bit intrigued by. Even that, it's a little bit redundant at this point, though. It's just everything feels just kind of like we're going through the motions again and again and again and again. It's a frustrating cycle.
The only interesting character, as we've established, is the bargainer statue under Lookout Landing, which speaks like a Disco Elysium character, and everything else is just like the worst. It is unbelievable how bad the voice acting is. I'll say it. Everyone else can separate themselves from this.
Jacob.
It's just like every other
I didn't know he was going to say that when I
I
agreed to do this.
No, absolutely, man.
Every other aspect of the game is so good, and this is like worse than like just like any random indie game where they got their friends to do it. Like, it is mind-boggling how just like maybe it's the vibe they're going for, and we all pretend that it's not a kid's game because it's fun to play, and it is a kid's game in reality because this is what the characters sound like. Or maybe Nintendo just has very specific notions, but like, it sucks so bad.
It does.
They're all so bad.
They're just, everybody's boring to listen to in every way. Yeah, man, I am totally with you there. Jeff, yeah?
Actually, me.
Okay. Hang on, were you just going to say game of the century again, then bow out? Are you just trying to defend yourself?
No, my gripe with the story this time was like just that when you said redundant, that resonated, because at the end of the temples, so much of the like, this story is going to happen and you're going to pick it up from a million different threads, and so we got to be careful about what information we're giving you. Like the glyphs doing the flashback cutscenes, I think that's a really cool way to do that. But having you be able to do the temples in each order, their solution seems to be that you get the same information every time at the end of every temple. And I was just skipping it by the time I was in the Lightning Temple, my final one I did. It was like, I'm really just going to have to learn that there was an imprisoning war again, and that this little thing is powerful.
And this is called the imprisoning war. It is unbelievable. I'm totally with it. Yeah, Jeffem's backlog wrote in about that. Thomas Watkins wrote about it as well, saying, I cannot believe that the exact same cutscene with a different narrator plays at the end of every temple. The only reason I even watched the fourth time was a desperate belief that the Sage of Thunder, a former follower of Ganondorf who betrayed him when he became the Demon King, could not have the exact same thing to say as everyone else. I had to force myself to finish the game after that disappointment. I just wasn't sure why I should care about the story anymore if Nintendo didn't even care enough to do the bare minimum. It's tough. I get that structure is really challenging if they can let you do these in any order, and they have to present that information in some way.
They didn't do that with Breath of the Wild. This was not a problem with Breath of the Wild because you got a little thing about each champion instead, which was interesting. And the most damning thing is I still can't tell you what they say in that cutscene because it's so boring that my brain turns off. Like, I've seen it 4 times.
Yeah, something about the Sage of Time comes to us and says that when the time comes, the magic imprisoning him will wear off, and I don't know. Yeah, it is. I don't know. I think this might be a weird comparison, but I'm a huge Monster Hunter fan, and I got so used to just turning my brain off to the story of those games because they are just such absolute nothing. Like, I just want to play, I just love the game part and do not care at all about the story. And so I've just gotten, I don't know, very used to just fast forward, I just let it wash over me without really paying attention. And that's fine. Like, the game's still incredible. It doesn't need a good story or like interesting storytelling to continue being a good game, but it does feel like if you're going to put, voice acting and cutscenes and all of that stuff into it, like, it's bad when people are like, I'd rather just skip this and pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
That's the thing, though, is there's like enough in there that it makes me have hope each time a cutscene starts.
Yep.
Like, maybe this one will be cool. If it was totally a 0, I would just skip everything.
Yeah, it's like out of the 4 characters, it's like I like the Gerudo lady the best, but it's really because she does cool poses with her weapons in the cutscene. That's like the most like charming thing I've seen from any of these guys
Ninja
so far.
Turtle stuff, man.
It really is basic level Ninja Turtle stuff. Also,
and it's a shame that like it's not like Zelda games have always had bad writing. It's like they've been kind of for kids, but it's like the Ganondorf and Wind Waker is so compelling. I think the writing in Twilight Princess generally is like really cool and interesting. Even Skyward Sword, which is like a very silly, obvious game, has like cool written moments, and it just seems like it's not like they inherited this. It does kind of seem like a new bad thing.
But I'm curious to see, in the next episode when y'all talk about it, like everything coming together, how the ending fits in. I feel like it's my main problem is like the temple storyline stuff that I feel like is just flat and redundant. And so I'm curious,
the
like
tiers have been good, like the finding the glyphs on the ground. Like I actually do really enjoy those, and I haven't done a lot of them, but those I am a lot more engaged with than like the main story stuff in the temples.
Have you seen the one? You get it far down south, but Jeff, I assume you got this. It's one on the peninsula. And it's the one where Ganondorf just smiles, and it is the weirdest, like full transformation animation possible. Has anybody else seen that freak thing yet? Oh,
That's all it is.
I wish that was all it was. Yeah, it's more of like a vine. No, I guess there's some there's some nonsense in there too. By the way, is anybody else? Is it a tech thing, or do they want to keep it this way? Is it intentional? When you're going around trying to find that little puddle to get the tear flashback and stuff, I feel like you have to be like 5 feet away from it before it's like zoop, and then it like fills up in a little pocket hole.
Yeah, the level of detail slider is like 4 inches
right
when it shows up.
It's such a weird feeling just to comb that over and over again. Like I could have ran right by it because I don't know when the game's going to populate this weird little puddle.
Yeah, and then every time you stop, it looks like everything's glowing and it's like going to turn into a puddle, but then it's just like, no, that's just like the latent animation that's always playing over those lines. I, for some reason, have a much harder time finding those little pools than I think everyone else.
Yeah?
'Cause I feel like I'm running around the entire outline. Yeah, that's my wife was like, oh yeah, it's not that hard. Like you just look around for a little bit and you'll usually know where it is. And it's like, how do you know where, just like fundamentally know where to go and where to find these things?
Yeah,
I had that like on one of them, and the rest of the time I'm running around being like, man, I wish I was shooting myself out of a sky tower again so I could take a look at this.
I had the most satisfying moment one time coming out of a sky tower and coming down on one of those and just like dive bombing right to just a spot, and it landed directly in the puddle. It's like, oh, it's so good. Let's see. Harrison Holt McHale writes in and asks, did anyone else struggle with the land of the skyfish riddle? There you go, Kelsey. It felt like such a complex riddle for the simplicity of the solution. I climbed to the top of Rito Village thinking surely these must be the skyfish. Glided across to a waterfall I could climb with Zora armor. I thought I was solving it brilliantly. The sky island I ended up on was even sort of looked like a droplet on the map. But no, the solution to the puzzle was to climb the waterfall about 20 meters behind Sidon. Yeah, sorry. I got excited when they started talking about, even though I'd already been to that island to clean the sludge off, when they were talking about like, oh, the skyfish. I was like, oh, is this going to be like a more elaborate windfish thing? Like some Link's Awakening reference? But not really.
It does feel like it's winking at that, though.
It's
right?
a light wink. It's more of a twitch. Randolph Sparks writes in and says, in a return to Zelda tradition, the water temple is the worst one in the game. I really disliked how they messed with the gravity and jumping after spending so long getting used to it. It caused me to fall off numerous times, and getting back up was a pain in my butt. And then Justin R says, I think the low gravity on the I think the low gravity was a game design band-aid. Likely during playtesting of the water bubbles, they were having issues with players jumping between them, and this was their solution to fix it. The low gravity is not even really explained or utilized and only occurs in this one section.
That's not true.
Interesting.
There's a Death Star. If you get high enough in the air, you will be in low gravity.
There are other
again.
ones.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yes. And it was exciting for me after, like, I hated the low gravity at first, and then I got used to it, and then I was back on the land, and I was like, I miss my moon gravity. I want to be floaty again. That was fun. But yeah, no, it's in other places in the game. I guess I don't know why they think it's the worst. I do feel like it was the easiest, and maybe that means it's the worst. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed feeling brilliant for 30 minutes or whatever.
I'm with you, just because like when that popped up, like Water Temple, I winced of like, oh god, just because I remember Ocarina so well, like, oh, this always kicked my butt, and then for that to be the easiest, it's like maybe it was a rebound the other way. They want to make sure it's just as sleek as possible.
I do think the physics on the floating water bubbles, that was a moment where I was like, this is not a Mario game, because it was like, if that was in Mario Odyssey, you would press like a jump and you would like pop right out of that and it would feel so good. And instead you kind of had to like swim a couple times to get out, and then your momentum was weird when you like got out the other side of it.
Yep.
And so it's like, I'm not sad that those aren't in the rest of the game. I'm happy that those water bubbles are kind of in the easy temple and nowhere else.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the water bubbles.
That one spinning pillar
Yep.
with the thing you had to hit inside of it that was spinning really fast. How did you guys solve that? I just shot 15 arrows at it until I got lucky.
That's exactly what I
So
did
remember
too.
how when you jump in the air, it slows down time?
It slows down time?
When you like jump
If you
and
aim.
aim your arrow?
Oh, yeah,
You're
right.
floating?
Oh, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
did the same thing at first. I was like, this is stupid. I think I wasted like 4 arrows. And then I was like, oh, wait. It slows down if I simply go in the air and do this.
But it is like, it's a puzzle that's not related to the dungeon at all, which is weird.
Yeah.
It's just like, yep, you can slow it down.
Yeah. I did like the feeling of putting a ball in one of those water bubbles. Like, all right, and now you go up. It's just a weird feeling that only this game has provided of like, all right, elevator of water, here you go, eat a ball. I don't know how I feel about the electricity puzzles. I think this is the first place where you really start dealing with it. I guess there were some shrines maybe before, but kind of like connecting the yellow lines of electricity to power stuff. It always feels like this game is more sophisticated with its puzzles than these. These feel like just kind of average video game puzzles of connect these dots, And everyone's nodding.
Oh, yes, we agree.
I mean, there have been some shrines where I have cheesed whatever the electric thing is by just having a like topaz rod or whatever, and just been like, here,
Oh,
sure.
sure.
I'm not gonna bother connecting all this stuff. I'm just gonna shoot some electricity at it.
Yeah.
And that definitely does feel like a not super satisfying way to break a puzzle. Like a lot of other ones feel fun, like you did something fun, and this is just like, I just have the cheat weapon. Like, that's not that fun.
Yeah, not outsmarting it, just doing something shameful.
Yeah.
There's one of those electricity shrines has a completely game-breaking machine in it, which is, it's one where the solution is like, there's a thing spinning around and you basically have to attach a fire thing to it, and it spins around and like lights all the torches at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did
which
that
is
one.
cool. I like that shrine. You can here's a weird thing with auto build. Auto build will remember any structure and can remake it, including like one-off machines like that spinny thing in the shrine. So if you make something with that spinny thing, then you can auto build it outside. And people are using that to essentially make a giant paddle that will throw Link into the air. And it throws him so high you can go from like in the depths to a skyland in like one thing by like using auto build to make this thing, and then I think using rewind or something, but it just spins and goes like boop, and Link just flies up.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, that video was my get a load of this last podcast, and I did build it, and it works pretty well. Like some of those videos, it's like oh, your chance of actually reproducing it is like 1%, but that one works surprisingly well, although like even the person who came up with it doesn't fully realize why it works, because you connect it to like 2 of the skateboards, and then if you just push the skateboard down onto a surface, that makes it start spinning, and there's no real there's no electricity involved with it, and no one really understands why it works that way. But it will just spin indefinitely fast until you do that trick and launch yourself, or until it just like completely falls apart and breaks. But I use that to like shoot myself to the sky labyrinth that's like way out over the ocean or whatever. So I felt pretty good about that.
There's also on that same note, there's just like a big skeleton of a creature, I think in the depth somewhere, and it looks like a whale skeleton, but you can move it. And so I've seen people make like flying gunships out of the whale.
Yes. God damn it. Yes. That is the best thing I've heard so far. Please, more gunships that are whales. By the way, in this temple, like it's such a simple thing, but I love like when you do work your way up to the temple, like just swimming up that waterfall that takes so long to go up. It's so satisfying just to keep going for so long up there. And it's cool just to have a temple to like, oh, if I fall off, like I'm going to go all the way back down to earth. It's such a weird feeling. Nathan, I guess the wind temple was like that as well. Nathan Freeman writes in and says, it's pretty neat how you're able to break the flow. During the lead up to the temple for water, I used rockets to skip a few areas. Close to the temple while rocketing, the game froze for about 5 seconds, and it took Sidon a few extra seconds to find me. When my son used springs in the same area, it bypassed more of the level and Sidon never showed up. When hitting the green circle thing in the beginning of the temple, it just showed a red X, and he had to backtrack to find Sidon just waiting for him somewhere else.
Weird.
That's so weird.
That's so weird. I did have that thing happen that like it froze for a solid couple of seconds.
Really?
It happened twice to me, both in low gravity areas. Once was the water temple and once was I forget where else, but somewhere high in the sky. And I just used a spring to go like extremely high, and I think the game like had trouble catching up to going that high that quickly. Like it just wasn't expecting you to do that. So, and it just freeze midair for a couple seconds and then I'd shoot straight up.
Huh.
Very strange. Also, I have not downloaded the most recent update, so then it's maybe better now.
Maybe, I don't know if there are performance things in there. Shoji Kodo says, one interesting detail I noticed, we never actually see Zelda in the lead up to the water temple. And we don't see her in the temple itself, but we did see her in the other 3 regions of the game and their respective temples. That is weird. It's just kind of like that mind warp, like, she's screaming, come here, whatever weird stuff is going on there. It's always alarming every time that pops up.
And yet also boring, because it just stops the game for like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Let's see. Heading to the southwest.
Wait, should we talk about the weird little guy boss?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
We
gotta talk about the weird little guy. The best part was like when that boss fight is about to start and Sidon's like, monologuing to you and he's like, this thing must be doing the thing. In the background, you can see the weird little boss guy. He's just doing like a crazy little dance in the background. It was like the funniest moment in the game to me because Sidon's trying to like take this very serious and he's like, this is who's ruining our village. This is poisoning our waters. And he's just, woo!
Look, it's a metaphor for industry. Look at this little guy.
Yeah, it felt like a Splatoon character. And obviously the mechanics were super Splatoony of him like jumping from little, I don't know, ink splat to ink splat and getting around. But yeah, I thought that was a super fun boss.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want his ability. I want to be able to do a little Splatoon through the sludge.
Yeah, get the hell out of here, Sidon. Who needs a bubble around me as a shield? I want just full on Splatooning in this game, please. But yeah, he was cool.
I beat that boss with the water weapon that had a powerful fusion, so you get double damage when you're wet, which that whole fight is wet. And that felt really good. It was like stunning him with the water and then just an arrow shot, and then each phase of the fight took just like one combo there. It was over so fast. That was satisfying.
That's nice. Yeah, it was fun to like have the hydrant and just to try to like cut down. I'm like, okay, if I just section this area off here, I don't have to fully clean out the thing, but just make it so he can't get from one little puddle to the next. Like it was fun just to do basic clean up during a boss fight there.
What's y'all's like best weapon that you've made, or are there any that like stand out of just like, oh, this was a good fusion?
I do like all of the like Zora weapons that you get that
Yeah.
are insanely powerful when they're wet, because it's a fairly easy thing to like stay on top of, is, you know, especially when you have Sidon, like you can cover yourself in water and do that. But it's like maintenance, so it's hard to, I don't know. It's really fun if I know I'm going to be taking on something big, but just for like day to day, you know, going around hitting things. I don't know. I don't think I have anything like, I just always make sure I have something that freezes on me, like an ice rod or something, because that just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, I had a little ice dagger that I found at a certain point that was just lovely. It was doing like a decent bit of damage, but I like that so much where it felt cooler to run around and just like freeze people with a little dagger real quick instead of the standard arrow shot.
Yeah, I had a sneaky ice weapon that was with me for like 15 hours because I only brought it out when I was sneak attacking, and it was great because if it didn't kill him, it still froze him. But on the sneaking point, to circle back from last episode, somebody suggested taking off your pants when you sneak up to somebody.
Right.
And I wish it didn't work as well as it did. I wish I didn't now have to take off my pants every time I sneak up on somebody because it is so effective.
Link just shamefully like, oh God, this is so annoying to redo my belt.
Please don't look around.
Yeah, it is weird like how you get attached to stuff in your inventory. Like I had a boomerang in my inventory for so long and I forget what it was fused with, but I've had it for like, 30 hours just sitting there. And then finally I was like, you know what? This is a section of the game where I learned how to use a boomerang. It turns out they're really fun. Like just having that extra bit of action to like try and catch it on your way back. And then it broke very quickly and I missed it immediately. Rich Carrasco says, I think Leo actually made a good point in the last episode. He didn't say actually. I just threw that in there to be a dick. I think Leo made a good point in the last episode in saying that weapons don't break fast enough in this game. I'll often beat a powerful enemy, but not be able to fuse its drop monster part because I don't have an empty weapon slot. Those big Minecraft block dudes have dropped powerful looking pieces, but the game doesn't let you pick them up later.
I've started chucking weapons all the time, which feels stupid, like throwing them at the enemies and destroying them early, because it's like, it just makes getting weapons more satisfying. But I'm like manually making them get destroyed a lot more often, you know?
I've been having so much fun with those block guys. I feel like I just keep finding different ways that you can fight them that I had like no idea of. Like the most basic is I didn't realize that you could just use Ultra Hand to grab stuff off of them.
Yeah.
And so you can get their like central core and pull it, but you can also you can fuse things to their blocks. And so if you have empty weapons, you can just take away a bunch of their blocks by like sticking them on your weapons, and then they can't like use those parts anymore.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I fought one of these guys on a Skyland and he just like went full horizontal platform, but then he was so high up, like I couldn't get to any of the blocks to grab. And I was like, does this just want me to make a flying Zonai device and go up there?
Well, but then he throws blocks down at you, which you can, of course, stand on and rewind, or like stand on and then like ascend through and just like pop through him. There are just like, there's so many weird, or you can like shoot an arrow with an eyeball up and almost like a javelin where it goes up and then it like comes down at him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, there was another fight with the Koga Yiga clan member guy too, where it's like Nintendo is not afraid of just at halfway through a boss fight, just making the guy super high up and be like, okay, you figure out how you're gonna get up here and how you're gonna finish this off. And it's another one of those things where it's like, do I admire this or am I annoyed by it when I don't have, like the materials to also do it? But half the time that's just like, I didn't think of using recall and like hopping on one of his blocks or something. It's an interesting, like, I guess in a way it goes against what in my mind Nintendo design is, where it's like, we're going to make this easy enough that anyone can do it. And then it's like, oh no, like most games in a boss fight like this, like they wouldn't do that to you because they'd be afraid that like you wouldn't have the resources to, pull it off and figure out how you're going to get up there. But they just go for it here. And that's that's different from what I was expecting, and most of the time that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So heading down to Gerudo City, which is abandoned in the middle of a whole sandstorm and all that stuff. Did you go through the whirlwind, Jeffem, or did you just fly in from the top, or what was your strategy for getting in there?
For the sandstorm, I ate like they try and sell you on that desert seal or whatever. And I was like, I'm not paying your 20 rupees or whatever, even if it's down from 50 rupees. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I just ate like some like chill mushrooms or whatever, and I just ran straight until I went through it, and it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, because you lose your radar in this whole section, but if you
you lose your radar, but there are a couple things that will like blow you up above the sandstorm, and then you can see it. And so they built it up, and I didn't take the bait, and I was kind of disappointed that it was actually easier than they made it sound like to get through it.
Right. Yeah, it's like even from the tower nearby, I found like the tower, if you just use it right and use the gust from Tool and all that stuff, it pretty much just drops you off right at the front gate of the town. So I was like, oh, it's not really that bad of a challenge here.
This was like one section where I was conflicted because I had no more time. Like I just started trying to do the Gerudo stuff last night, and it was like I got the sky tower, and then was like, well, I could just fly in there, but it was the one time when I actually forced myself of like, I'm actually going to go way back and follow the path that they want me to do, because you discover so much stuff on the way, and like all the different, there are like characters that are all stranded in the desert because they don't know what a desert is apparently, and none of them prepared before they headed out. And so I actually took the time to actually take the path that they want you to take, and it was kind of worth it.
Yeah.
It is weird that like kind of 3 of the 4 dungeon sections, the strategy is like, this place is going to be not fun to be in until you do that dungeon.
Yeah.
Because it's like the Goro one is just kind of like everyone's eating their red rock roast. That's fine. But it's like the Rito one's cold, and the Zora domain is sludgy, and this place you have no map. And so all of them, I felt like, well, I guess I have to do the dungeon to like enjoy being here, because it just kind of sucks otherwise.
It's just so annoying to be in that haze, especially for the Gerudo town, but then it's so nice to get that Claritin Clear level moment where they just peel back and it's like, oh, I can finally see things. Here we go. It's so satisfying. I liked getting into the town. And it was like in this area where like, I found an area where you can ascend and then you can get into like the princess's room when she's not in there. You can like read her diary and stuff.
I couldn't tell exactly if it was the mainline way to do it, but like dropping down the hole, reading the notes and following them upstream and then ascending there.
Yeah.
I thought was a really cool sequence. And I like popped up in the middle of the market and I was like, well, I shouldn't be here. And so it was the first time ever that I pressed B and did not ascend and just dropped back down. And it gave me an appreciation of like, that's good that you could do that. But then I realized you are supposed to do that. And it just, moves the story along.
Yep. It's nice that you didn't have to do the same thing. Like, I don't have to dress up like a woman again in Breath of the Wild, even though it was fun. It's like, I wonder what their twist is going to be. And I love it's just like, if you sneak in, then they're like, you're cool. We need you here anyway, Link. So have at it. Nick from Atlanta writes in and says, the Vo and You class activity was so interesting to do, and there isn't even a quest or adventure associated with it. I've looked up very few things in the game, but when the final request was to see an item from a village to the northwest, I immediately looked up whether I had to trek the whole thing across half of Hyrule just to get this done. After dozens of hours, I still didn't think to just fuse it to my shield to show it to her to get her to believe in love again. I should show the wreath to Purah and see if she has the same response, says Nick. I guess I only did the first one there where they have that, here's how you interact with men class for all the Gerudo there and whatnot. Here's what the Vo are all about. And it's like that first one that I did, it was like, oh, I can't even look at his face. And so I had to put just like my stupid big metal lizard mask on so I could talk to this lady. I was like, oh, this is so comfortable now. Good silly stuff. And I like them having like mannequins in the classroom area. It's like just so they have prop men set up in this Gerudo town. Such a weird idea. Steve Evolution says, I don't know about everyone else, but I really love the massive horror / sci-fi / Stargate vibes I got from doing the temple. I went into this part of the map skeptical because I enjoyed it so little in Breath of the Wild, but everyone's motivations for their actions were a lot more engaging than in the last game. Also, I think Of all the temples, this one represented best what I think and hope temples/dungeons will become if they stick to the open world, do what you want format. Yeah, basically like you were saying, Leo, that just like the size of this thing, it feels like the most complex out of all of them, even if we're breaking the hell out of it.
I really liked, there was a moment in this temple where it was like the last generator or whatever that I hadn't started, and I didn't know how to get in, and I was like, oh, if I go all the way back to the beginning, I can ascend through the floor and get to it. And I did that, and I worked, and then I ascended and realized that there were just 2 bricks in the wall that I could have used Ultra Hand to pull out. But it was like the thing that I did worked, and also made me think like, wait, I could have done this literally as soon as I walked into the temple. I could have like skipped all of the other puzzles if I just knew that I had to ascend here.
Yep, I know exactly the one you're talking about. I feel like maybe this was the least guided puzzle, or maybe I was just in a stupid state of mind, but I went into it and I forgot to like talk to the stone in the center twice or something. We went up to it and it was like error sound or whatever the hell. And so it's like, oh, maybe this is a temple where I don't have to activate just 4 different regions or 5 different regions or whatever the heck. Maybe I can just play it a little differently and they're going to shake it up. And so then I was just going around and exploring the rest of the dungeon, and I explored the entire thing, and like, you know, I ascended through the ceiling and got to the boss room, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the giant mushrooms I need to shoot with my electricity, but the lady isn't with me. I don't know what to do here. And I was so stumped by so many different things. And I realized like, oh, I needed to go down and talk to that thing one more time so that the Gerudo lady would then follow me around. So I feel like my entire order for this entire dungeon was just broken and shattered. But that was kind of the charm of it as well there. Ricky Maru had a similar experience, saying, I'm really just writing in to make sure I'm not the only one that got stuck here for too long. I started the temple by climbing the outer walls, only to reach the top and find nothing, not even a korok or chest with an acorn in it or whatever. Then, making my way into the actual temple, I paced the stairs in nearby rooms, but to no avail. Getting frustrated, I did what any sane person would do, ascended. This led me to the boss room. Insert John Travolta gif looking around. Nothing. It was only later by accidentally jumping around off the stairs that I found one of the alcoves leading to some progress, and finally I had nearly given up when I saw a movable wall with my Ultra Hand while trying to do something else. The temple was rough, says Ricky Ramu. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people said it felt more like a Ocarina of Time temple in there.
What I've found though, in this stream is that every single time we've said like I got lost doing something silly that was totally wrong or whatever, like you with the cleaning the sludge off the whale, any number of tiny little things we brought up like that, somebody in the chat has gone, I did that too.
Right.
For better or for worse, for the good things or the bad things. And I think there's something interesting about that, about like we're all kind of making similar assumptions with the tools we've given, and we're all like tuning in and missing certain information.
Yeah.
It's just part of it.
What did y'all think about that tower defense section?
Yes, defending the town. I liked the preparing for it. Like, I liked going around town and everybody getting ready for this big attack. It felt cool. Like when you're setting up, like, okay, we need the people with the swords. You got to go to the east and you go to the west. I was getting into that for a second, then I realized this won't matter in the least. I'm just going to use my sword in a little bit. It's fine.
It was like asking me to make strategic decisions, and I was like, I don't know what any of this means.
Right.
Like, why would the sword go one place and the spear go another?
It is silly. And especially it's like, you know where they're going when the bottom option is like, hey, you just do what you want, guard. I'll trust you know what you're doing. So yeah, it was going to be fine. I focused too much on like the outside areas and guarding the gates, and so I actually lost that once where the Gerudo lady died inside of the whole area. Then I realized like my second time around, like, oh, you just go outside and just shoot their little mushroom pods with electricity, and then it's basically like 14 enemies you have to take out, and that's about it.
The tower defense thing was when I felt small. I feel like in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, there's something about Link running around where he's always felt half the size of a regular person in this world. There's something, everything around you feels so big, and that's like part of the vibe. It's not a dig, but that having to run like, oh, where's the last enemy, and running around checking each end of the city, that felt really time consuming.
Mm-hmm. You know what I really like in the game is I do love shooting those little mushroom pods though and watching them crumble down to sand. I feel like that's always really satisfying. It's like, yeah, it's very Spider-Man 3, Jacob.
There's a very just like Link can't talk, except sometimes he can. But when I was talking to them, and they were like, we have no idea how to fight these guys. What do we do?
Right.
And I was like, I figured out 20 hours ago that you just like burn them. Well, Link was like, yeah, that sucks. I don't know, man.
Yeah, just keep using your spears. Best I got. I was just going to town with the bombs. Like, I had so many bomb flowers at that point that I was just lobbing at all those Gibdos, whatever their names were. Yeah, Gibdos. And that seemed to do the trick. It was like one hit basically for all of them. Let's see. David writes in, says, I love Riju and her power, but she's always so advanced against enemies that I have a real hard time actually using it. I can't be the only one with the issue, right? Yeah, she's all over the place, but it is satisfying when you activate it, like see that lightning line like spreading around the environment. That's kind of fun to watch spread out slowly. James W says, I love Riju in this game. She's become my difficult combat solver for me. I finally took on the swarms of those nightmarish gloom hands and a boss that appeared after in the Great Plateau. And by took them on, I mean Riju's lightning attack two-shot them while I scampered up a tree like a coward during the cooldown. If all Riju needs is an archer to signal her lightning with, I appreciate her and Tulin letting me tag along on the adventure. They clearly don't need me. Has anybody gone to the Great Plateau? I haven't been there yet.
I was there for a little bit, but I can't remember what I was. I got lost there. I think there's like a church out there.
Okay.
And it gave me like some clue of a place that I was supposed to go to. There was a statue that gave me a clue, and I could not find where I was supposed to go.
Gotcha.
Then I got ambushed by Yiga. So
it didn't even occur to me that like, oh yeah, the place that Breath of the Wild. I was like, I forgot that I might have been there, but I didn't like clock that that's where I was.
Right. David says, what is a Sage Will and how does one use it? I found one pretty early on, and now I'm through all 4 anomalies and I have no idea what to do with these things.
We talked about this last week. You got to have 4, and then you can use it to power up one of your helpers.
There you go.
And it just powers up their like combat ability, right? Yeah. Nothing else.
As far as I know, yeah.
Were 320 says, not to be negative. Come on, man. But playing more, I'm finding the ground level to be not that interesting. The 2 big factors to this is that the world feels like a collection of video game themes / biomes that don't really fit together organically, and the world just feels too large and empty. These two combined lead me to not being excited about exploring the world and instead looking for the next shrine, memory, stable, or next item on my video game checklist. To me, this is in stark contrast to the Sky Islands that are much more contained and interesting with their traversal puzzles. That's interesting. Well, everybody has their layer. There's going to be the depth freaks, there's going to be the rolling green hills freaks, and the sky puzzle freaks.
There's big, wide open areas of nothing that you run across without anything happening on the land level, for sure. But I think the insurance this game has is feeling like, well, I should have made something cool to drive across this. Right. This is on me. I'm choosing to be lazy and just run.
Man, I was thinking too in this game, like, I think we were talking about just AAA climbing in games and how it's in everything, even our dear favorite game, Gollum and stuff like that. And it's like, I was thinking about like the climbing in this game. It is, yeah, it's going to be janky at times. There's definitely those moments of like, okay, will I slide? Will I stop on this? Can I recharge my stamina here? But like, I have so much more fun with climbing in this game than any other game. Like, I care so much more about it than any other game. Like, seeing a tower on top of a mountain, it is such a fun feeling of like, how the hell am I going to get up there just by climbing? It's a fun challenge.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not going to be Gollum level, and that's fine. But there's like any little mountain has those little moments of like, oh, should I go for this safe overhang and recharge, or can I just book it to the top? There's like, it being so freeform makes for a lot of interesting decisions as you're doing it.
Yeah, I know it's like the big obvious thing with this game too, but I just keep being amazed by just having like, it's such a fun middle ground of always feeling that there's a bubble around me that with some effort, I can get pretty much anywhere. You know, it has that feeling of like, oh, if it's a game where you can basically no clip fly anywhere, it becomes pointless. But it just feels like there's this bubble of effort, and at any point you can go in any direction, especially up, if you just use your brain and your tool set the right way. And it's such an empowering feeling that hasn't happened in any game, where it's like every situation I walk into, it's like, I got this. I know there's some way that I can navigate this space. And just to have that range of possibility, it's it is night and day compared to every other game ever made. It's such a weird feeling.
The balance is totally unique versus like, you know, in some games you could get a helicopter and then just decide to never leave it behind.
Right.
And just get everywhere in the whole game like that.
Yep. But having everything be timed, everything be a little bit limited. Like, I'm sure the high level players are playing in a way I couldn't imagine at this point, but just for the common folks, it's the perfect level.
This is unrelated, but I did just Google Sage's Will Reddit just to see if I could find some more information. And I ran across this comment that said, whistle once to make the sages stop moving. Whistle twice and they'll come to you.
The horse whistle?
What?
Apparently.
So it's like the Ashley thing in Resident Evil 4? Oh, weird.
Wow.
So there you go. We're all wrong. Nintendo's very smart, and they definitely communicate their information very well.
So when everybody becomes a ghost, they become part horse?
That's the takeaway.
That's true in real
That's
life,
it.
too.
Oh, okay, cool. Jake Z writes in and says, a couple times I've built an elaborate sign supporting structure for Addison, only to have a fire keese invade to destroy it. It feels like Nintendo's trolling me. Has it happened to anybody else? No, sorry, it's just
That was funny.
They're trolling it.
Yeah, they hate you. Danny,
That's only in your copy of the game specifically.
that's right. You should sell it. Sell it for huge money on eBay.
That actually, you know how some games have like very silly anti-piracy things like that, where it's just like it doesn't prevent you from playing the game, but like everything is way harder or something.
Right,
like,
right.
That would be a funny way of handling that in this game. It's just like you are constantly getting attacked by keys.
But only when you're building up Addison signs. It's like the equivalent of like the chickens attacking you in any other Zelda game. It's just like there's a swarming for some reason.
I do get really excited when I see a swarm of like 20 keys. Because I'm like, one bomb, I'm getting like 30 eyeballs.
Oh, it's so sweet.
One of my favorite TikTok.
You could kill those. I think you're about to say what I was about to say. So go ahead.
My favorite clip I've seen involving that was standing outside a cave and making this laser grid and setting it up outside the mouth of the cave and then just like making a noise to scare all the bats out, and it just like the whole flock coming out and getting eviscerated.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that was how I learned that those are like real keys. Like I don't know. I guess because there's just so many of them, they don't like really hurt you on their way out. I just assumed it was like like I couldn't hurt them if I wanted to. So yeah, then I saw that clip and I was like, oh, that's incredible. I'm gonna be doing that.
Yeah, they're good resources. The eyes and the wings are both great.
Danny Yorkus says, in the spirit of MinMax's emphasis on community, positivity, and getting better, I'm using my comment to say shout out to Mishi for marking those armor locations on my map. She was a fellow adventurer I passed on the road. She had a peculiar fashion sense, wearing a mushroom-shaped hat and mushroom-embroidered dress. Getting the climbing gear and barbarian armor early on was a huge help, and I appreciate all the individual people of Hyrule for helping Link in their own ways. She sounds great. Jimbo P writes in and says, cutting grass with a long weapon is so satisfying. Yeah, absolutely. I love cutting grass in all Zelda games and just having a super long, weird thing to do it. Then they say, is anyone else a cricket collecting degenerate? I have a lot of them, but is it mainly just for cooking, or is there a point to crickets beyond that?
Everything has its part in the ecosystem. It's not just for you to cook.
Okay, sorry. I can attach them to more arrows. I don't know what to do with these freaks.
Have you seen those videos where people make the lawnmower? Where it's just like a big car with like a rotating blade under it, and they just set it in a field, and then they're collecting like rice and crickets as it cuts the grass.
God, that's good. What a cool game. Jared P wrote in, said, and they just ask, do you think it hurts Link's head when he ascends headfirst into solid rock? Well, he does.
It kind of pauses when he first like chunks into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, some resistance there.
Okay.
He goes arm first though, doesn't he?
I think so. So yeah, you think it would like hurt his fingers a little bit, but not that bad. It's just like it's kind of like just jamming your finger.
I do think that he can't breathe, which is makes it a very scary concept to me.
Yep, that's right. Canadian says, when using a Zonai device, you can see the battery drain on Link's waist, which is really cool. Oh. That is cool. Also, when you upgrade a stash, there are subtitles for Hetsu saying da na na na, which is amusing that he says the video game sound effect out loud. That's why Hetsu's the best. Jason Wojnar wrote in saying, I accidentally left my comfort grip at a friend's place. and had to play for about a week with detached Joy-Cons, and it was surprisingly comfortable. Having my hands apart felt like I wasn't holding a controller at all. That's how Kyle likes to play. I don't know if he still does, but that was definitely the Kyle Hilliard method for a long time.
I would love to play but that way, but unobstructed, it still just has weird laggy inputs with my Switch.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because it is really comfortable. I do like the Joy-Cons for that.
Then you'll love Super 1-2 Switch, or whatever it's called, coming this June. Brian Stanley writes in and says, I admit it, I duplicated items, but I'm glad. Glad, I tell you. Repeating the same minigame to afford clothing with the incorrect heat resistance was not rewarding. I also got to build crazy machines without concern for Zonai part stock. I never would have used a big battery if I only had the one I had found throughout the game. They last an incredible amount of time. Update 1.1.2 is downloaded. Hands sweaty and shaking. Game restarted. The hidden duplication power of the Zonai is now gone. Well, I'm glad you got to use it while it lasted, Brian. We Go Giant, otherwise known as Sean Rubin, is saying, hey, so I've always believed in single-player games that there's no such thing as cheating. Glitches, easy modes, Game Shark, go nuts. I also understand Nintendo's perspective and why they fixed a bunch of glitches with Update 1.1.2. I just wish that since glitches don't negatively impact ordinary play, they would have left them in. How do you feel about developers patching out glitches when no casual player is going to accidentally exploit them?
I can't. I want to live and let live, and I can't help but get mad at people who do duplication glitches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, certainly, I'm okay up until the point of saying, like, they shouldn't patch that out. It's like they're making something with that they want you to engage with in a certain way. And you're not doing it. And that's fine, but you don't like deserve accolades for that.
Yeah, I didn't even look how to do it. Was it really easy to do that duplication glitch?
I don't know exactly how
I
you do it.
didn't look it up either.
I was definitely like in a work Slack where people were talking about Tears of the Kingdom. One guy was just like, yep, got my 30,000 rupees from duplicating stuff. And I was like, cool, man. I don't know. Like, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's just like it would not be fun for me. And it sounds like it would not be fun for most of the people in this discussion, but that doesn't mean like, you know, I'm looking down on people for whom that is fun for.
Yeah.
It's,
For sure. I just empathize with it so little that it really strikes me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing too is like, it might just be a duplication glitch, but we don't actually know how like far the brokenness of that goes. Like maybe not patching it out actually breaks something else somewhere else, you know? Like I don't know that we know if it's, you know, purely like that was the only problem with that. That's the only issue that needed to be addressed, or like that was part of larger fixes.
Yeah. Jeff, what did we miss? What struck you in this play session that we haven't hit on yet?
I guess only like high level. It dawned on me that it's like this was a crazy game for them to make because when I was thinking about it and when I think about a sequel, it's like I never want to play another Zelda game that doesn't have Ultra Hand, and that just seems absurd to me. That it's like I'm sure the next Zelda game they'll just make something completely different and maybe people won't think about it, but it's weird for them to give you so many tools and so much freedom. And like the flip side of that is like, well, now you've set a precedence for me and I just don't want to play anything else that doesn't have that kind of freedom. So what are you going to do now? It's like, I kind of feel bad for Nintendo because it kind of feels like they painted themselves into a corner with this game, even though I'm sure, like I said, they'll just do something different and it'll probably be some game with waggle controls again and whatever. And Zelda fans will still love it anyway. But for me, it's like, wow, this is like, it's a bold design, not just because it opens the door to so many problems with like designing challenges that you can just do in 1,000 different ways, but it's bold in the sense of like, I don't want to play anything else now. And like,
yeah.
And that's Nintendo's problem now to figure out how to win people over if they don't have Ultra Hand in the future.
Yeah, I do feel I feel the same way, but I also remember feeling the same way about Breath of the Wild,
Yeah.
and I barely even remember what the different powers you had at this point are, and I don't miss
Sure.
them. So, like,
Yeah.
these do feel more like, I don't know, concrete than the powers you got in that one. Like, they do feel more useful and creative and all of those things, but at the same time, like, I remember distinctly feeling exactly this way before, and so maybe they'll come up with something else entirely that's also really creative and cool. And
In the third game, you're just going to be coding it yourself. Is like
it's that
next
Game
step,
Maker's
yeah.
Garage. Is that the,
Yeah.
the name?
Right.
Of it?
They're fusing the universes. That was part of the Zelda timeline the whole time. They just never told us. Yeah.
Yeah.
One way that I did feel about Breath of the Wild that I had kind of the realization of like, oh, this is true for this game too, is like, I'm probably never going to replay this, you know, which is like a weird thing to say, but it's like, it is so special, but also so gradual that, I mean, it would have to be 10 years from now, in which I assume there will be another one of these, because it's like going backwards would feel so bad. You know, if I wasn't speedrunning it and I was trying to just like play it again, it's like I'm so happy with all my battery and all the like effort that it's taken to get there. And the idea of just like going down into the depths and hitting rocks to mine them again, I'm having so much fun with that on this playthrough. And like, I just don't think I'm ever going to do it again, which makes this kind of even more special because it's like, this is it. You know, this is my experience with the game.
Yeah,
But on
especially
the flip side, this does feel like you can play A for longer and B, like, come back in 4 months having not touched it and, like, just find a few more interesting things.
Oh, I mean, it's
Right.
like, I'm still at like, I don't know, 23% completion of this after playing for like 80 hours. So like, yeah, I could just keep the save file going.
For sure. I feel for people who say I love Legend of Zelda and like pretty much every staple of the franchise I grew up with has been eliminated from it.
the chime's there.
I think that's something I see and I go, I would be a little sad if I was in that position for sure. But I think we touched on it last time with all the, you know, indies picking up the torch,
Yeah.
the Tunics of the world and whatnot. It's kind of cool for them to have like put that design ethos out into the world and people are going to keep being inspired by it. And they're trying to do new things that will inspire in new ways. Like
Yeah.
it's the coolest thing they could be doing with Zelda. Like I will never not have respect for it.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll keep doing, I don't know, remakes of old games and stuff along the way. But I could see it being 10 years before the next big Zelda comes out. Like I'd imagine, but you can never predict Nintendo, but it would make sense that like at the launch of the next Switch, they would have kind of a remastered Breath of the Wild because everybody would buy it again. And despite what Jacob Geller is saying, he would buy both these games again and play through them at 4K 60 or whatever the hell.
But it's like, would you play Breath of the Wild after this game?
It'd feel
because
weird.
I really think I wouldn't.
I would buy it. I would certainly buy it.
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I think I would buy it, and then I think I'd either not boot it up at all, or I'd play for a couple hours and be like, I've done this, and also it's been done better now.
Yeah.
So
Yep, for sure. I mean, last mean thing I'll ever say about this game is like,
We're talking about the story. Oh, you'll be gone. So,
I'll be
yeah.
gone. Oh, yeah, you'll be back in the story. I'll be out of it. But no,
Smart
like,
move. Good planning with that.
thank
baby.
you. Like, we are not talking enough about some of the textures in this game and how trash they are. Like, it's a miracle this game runs as well as it does on the Switch. But like, when you go to like the prayer statue to upgrade your hearts, like the fact that those textures are never loaded properly, it's like that's a recurring thing you go to again and again and again, and it just looks like a PS1 stone statue. It is rough, and
are you playing in handheld mode or on the TV?
no, on the TV.
Oh, okay. So I'm playing in handheld mode, and I do not notice this stuff.
Really?
But that is
Yeah.
entirely because it's a small screen. I'm
Nope,
sure.
I'm playing on a 4K 55-inch TV. I've never thought about it once.
Are you serious?
Truly.
Wow.
Nope.
Wow.
It's like the lighting in this game is so good and the art is so interesting that the word like textures has never even occurred to me.
I mean, that is the accomplishment of this game for sure. And I'm not even like a wild graphics fiend or something like that, but I'm just bracing myself for that remaster, and I think we're all going to look back on this and be like, woof, when we finally see it compared to what it potentially could look like at some point, you know? But even just like going to the forge, Leo, and taking that little cart down in there. It's like that, the frame rate dropping as you're in the minecart going down, and then it's just kind of like this glitchy black hole on the side of the mountain that you're going into. Every time that happens, like, oh, I just wish it was a little better looking. But again, it's already the greatest game of all time. It doesn't need to try that much harder.
I feel like some people have written in complaining about performance way more than others, or way more than we have experienced. And I wonder if there's something going on behind the scenes where some people really are getting like different performance issues.
Maybe. Are you not
like
seeing?
an age of Switch or something?
Yeah, I also think just people are sensitive to different things. I'm someone who's not super sensitive to either graphics or at least like small changes in performance. Like obviously, my game straight up froze for a couple seconds a couple of times. And like that is obviously extremely noticeable and bad, but it's easy for me to gloss over some of that stuff, and I totally respect that it takes some people like completely out of the game to be struggling with performance or like seeing, textures not pop in correctly.
Yeah. Hey everybody, it's time for Tears of the Kingdom Celebrity Corner. Play the jingle. A couple thoughts. There's a character who's at the towers named Sawson. You know this MFer? He sounds so much like Kumail Nanjiani. In my mind, I haven't even dug into it to see, but in my mind, it's like that would be the weirdest casting, but it's not impossible, right? That they would get Kumail Nanjiani just to do the like
first Shadow of War, then Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
I forgot he was in Shadow of War, but just like the super simple, like wow, like it's indistinguishable from Kumail Nanjiani now, and I can't unhear it. Also, other thing in the Celebrity Corner is I don't know how I feel about it. I'm conflicted, but I listened to every episode of Penn Jillette's podcast. And on the last episode, he was talking about Tears of the Kingdom because he's like, yeah, everyone's telling me, my son keeps telling me that there's a big pelican bird guy in Tears of the Kingdom, the new Zelda game, and his name is Penn, and they think he's named after me. And he's like, I don't know if that's true. Do you think that's just Pelican that they're shortening to get to Penn? Because he's like a big, tall, broad-chested guy. He's a little Penn Jillette-y in some ways.
He's also like a journalist. He's, penning his...
Pen.
Okay. Yeah, stay out of it.
But he also does close-up magic, right? Or did I stream that?
Imagine the Nintendo localization team being like, okay, we know in Japan he has an entirely different name, but in America he's named after Penn Jillette.
And we will not settle for it.
There's the Japanese equivalent of Penn Jillette that he's named after.
We all know and love and respect. Okay, last thing for me. The little red arrows in the game, I never know what they're pointing at. What are those? Do you know what I'm talking about? Just the red arrows you
They
find in the environment?
triangulate a spot, and there's going to be a Korok wherever they meet.
Okay, because sometimes they can be pretty spaced out. That helps me. Yeah, I mean, the game rules. I was fighting a stone talus, big talus? Is that what those things are called? Yeah.
Alice.
I was just fighting one of those guys out in a green field. It was as beautiful as it can be, having a blast doing it. And then just noticed like the music changing. I was like, what is going on here? And it wasn't like a blood moon. And I realized we were right next to a hole going into the ground, and a dragon just happened to be flying out of it. And it was like, just a dozen feet away from me at the time. Just this moment of like, God damn it, this game is awesome.
The dragons are the purest essence of this game, doing a like, just being like sidelined by a sublime moment of just like the amount of like presentation they don't put on them, where you just look off in the distance and there's a dragon there, and then we'll talk about more next week.
Yeah, I mean, just having the moment of being launched from a tower and seeing a dragon go into the depths, and it's like, oh, I gotta get on that, and like dive bombing down to it, then grabbing onto the dragon and riding him through the depths. It's like, that is just the coolest, weirdest thing.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess it didn't really dawn on me because I saw one coming out, I think the last time I streamed, I had one of those magic moments of just like being next to a hole, and one came out, and then I was down in the depths and I started hearing the sound.
Yeah.
And it didn't even occur to me that like there would be a dragon down in the depths, but it's like, well, I guess now that makes sense retroactively, that's where they're going and coming out of. But just and it's another one of those moments of like, wait, how big is it down? Like, how far down did I go that there's like dragons? And I couldn't even find it where like,
Right.
it must have been so high or whatever. But I'm like looking around, like every time that music starts, I stop and look around to see like, oh, where's the dragon? I get so excited about it like a little kid.
Oh, and it's just fun to use them like a taxi for the depths. Just like another way. It's a really smart way just to get you to try different things, explore different areas. So you're just riding them in the depths and be like, okay, what trajectory is this thing on? It's just taking me to the middle of absolutely nowhere in the black depths. That's super, super fun just to jump off and like, that's where I'm starting. Let's see what's over here. It's a masterpiece. Did we miss anything from anybody else that they're dying to say?
It's really messed up that you take tornadoes to get to the lightning temple, and it's really, really helpful. And then the boss shoots tornadoes at you, and those are bad.
Right. Yeah. What did we say was a
messed up.
masterpiece? Yeah, I take it back. That's kind of
game.
embarrassing. Trash game. Sweet. All right. We'll be back in a month. We'll let you know the exact details soon. We're still trying to lock down that exact date, probably leaning towards late June, but we'll let you know how we're feeling. And that'll be the big wrap up for the deepest dive on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We'll be covering everything in the game, the ending, the story. Fun fact, there's a story in this game that we really haven't talked about barely at all, but we'll unpack all that stuff, or at least they will. I'll be signing off. I'll be on my paternity leave. So I'm out of here, folks. But thanks everybody for joining us for this ride so far. And thanks to everybody who's unlocked the podcast version of these discussions and for supporting the Deepest Dive format. This whole thing exists because of your support. So you can help support independent games media and unlock that bonus podcast feed, which is oh so sweet. It's better than riding a dragon. If you just go to patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's, not chasing a dragon, Jacob, riding a dragon like a gentleman. Patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's. Check it out. Unlock that benefit. We'd appreciate it. All right. I think we got it. Kelsey, you want to do a cool sign off?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
So long.
Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of The Deepest Dives, MinMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinMax Show podcast a day earlier than everybody else. So please help support independent games media. Head over to patreon.com/minmax with 2 N's.